Welcome to Shadows of the Past, where the echoes of forgotten crime stir in the darkness. Tonight we delve into 12 true crime stories, each a chilling reminder of the fragility of trust and the shadows that lurk in even the safest places. These are tales of betrayal, loss, and the dogged pursuit of truth, woven to pull you into their haunting depths. Settle into the quiet, let the rain drown out the world, and surrender to the stories that wait. This is True Crime Stories for Sleep, Volume 20. Let's step into the first shadow. Part 1, The Murder of Kathy Martin, Houston, Texas, 1987. In the sprawling suburbs of Houston, Texas, where oak trees cast long shadows over manicured lawns, March 3, 1987, began as an unremarkable day. The air was thick with the promise of spring, and in a modest ranch-style home, Kathy Martin moved through her routine with the quiet grace of a devoted mother. Born in 1959, Kathy was 28 years old. Her life a tapestry of love woven with her husband, Mike Odom, and their 2 children, a 4-year-old daughter and an infant son. Supported by her parents' modest wealth, Kathy had chosen the role of homemaker, her days filled with the soft chaos of childcare and the warmth of family. Their home on a quiet street was a sanctuary, a place where laughter echoed and the future seemed certain. But that night, the sanctuary would shatter and a darkness would seep in, leaving scars that time could never fully heal. Kathy's day had been ordinary. She'd spent the morning with her children, her daughter's giggles filling the house as they played with dolls on the living room floor. The baby, nestled in his crib, cooed softly, his tiny hands grasping at the air. Kathy's life revolved around these moments. Simple, fleeting, and precious. Mike, a man hardened by a past he rarely spoke of, worked long hours, his job in construction keeping him away until dusk. Their marriage wasn't perfect. Whispers of strain lingered, but Kathy's warmth held them together. She was the anchor, the one who made their house a home. As evening fell, the neighborhood settled into its usual rhythm. Children called inside, porch lights flickering on, the hum of suburban life fading into silence. But something was wrong. Mike, finishing a late shift, stopped at a payphone, the receiver cold against his ear. He dialed home, expecting Kathy's voice, soft and familiar. 1 ring, 2, 3. No answer. He tried again, the silence on the other end growing heavier. Kathy rarely left the house at night, especially with the children. Unease coiled in his gut. He called a neighbor, Tim Robinson, a man known for his reliability, and asked him to check on Kathy. "She's not picking up," Mike said, his voice tight. "It's not like her." "Can you go by?" Tim, a lanky man in his 30s, agreed without hesitation. He pulled on a jacket, his boots scuffing against the pavement as he crossed the street. The Martin house stood quiet, its windows glowing faintly. The television flickered through the curtains, casting eerie shadows. Tim knocked, the sound sharp in a still night. "Kathy, you there?" No response. He knocked again, harder, his breath catching. Peering through the window, he saw the living room. Empty. Untouched. The television playing, to no one. Something felt wrong, a prickle of dread that sent him back to his car. Instead of calling the police directly, Tim drove through the neighborhood, searching for a patrol car, his mind racing. Why wasn't she answering? Where was she? By the time Tim flagged down an officer, the clock was ticking. The police arrived at the Martin house, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The front door was unlocked, a detail that hung in the air like a warning. They pushed it open, the hinges creaking, and stepped into a scene that would haunt them for years. The living room was still, the television murmuring softly, its blue light casting ghostly shapes on the walls. On the sofa, Kathy's 4-year-old daughter lay unconscious, her small body bruised, her breathing shallow but steady. Panic surged as the officers called for backup, their voices low and urgent. They moved deeper into the house, past the kitchen, where a half-finished cup of coffee sat on the counter, past the nursery where the baby slept unharmed in his crib, his innocence untouched by the horror unfolding. In a back room, they found her. Kathy Martin lay on the floor, her body stripped of dignity, her arms bound tightly behind her with a light cord. Blood pooled beneath her, dark and glistening, the air thick with the coppery scent of death. 16 stab wounds marred her body, most concentrated in her abdomen, each one a testament to a rage that seemed boundless. The scene was meticulous in its brutality. Evidence of sexual assault added a layer of violation that cut deeper than The officers stood frozen, their training battling the human instinct to recoil. Who could do this, and why? The investigation began under a cloud of grief and urgency. Houston in 1987 was a city grappling with rising crime, but this murder felt personal, intimate. The absence of forced entry was the first clue that gnawed at detectives. The windows were locked, the back doors secure. Whoever did this hadn't broken in, they'd been let in, or they'd had a key. Kathy knew her killer, or so it seemed. The thought was a splinter in the mind, sharp and persistent. Who was close enough to cross that threshold, to turn a home into a slaughterhouse? Suspicion turned first to Mike Odom. He was the husband, the one who'd called Tim, the one whose absence that night left questions unanswered. Detectives noted stains on his work shirt, dark, suspicious smears that looked like blood. Mike's past didn't help. A drug charge from years ago, a shadow he tried to outrun, painted him as a man with secrets. His alibi was solid. He'd been at work, surrounded by coworkers, but alibis could be fabricated. The stains were tested, the results a quiet relief. Not blood, but paint. A remnant of his construction job. Mike submitted to a lie detector test, his hands trembling as he answered questions about his wife, his life, his fidelity. The polygraph needle stayed steady. He was telling the truth, or so the machine believed. But doubt lingered, a whisper that wouldn't fade. Tim Robinson, the neighbor, was next. His actions that night were odd. Why drive around looking for police instead of calling 911? His car had stains too, dark patches that raised eyebrows. Tim's explanation was simple: motor oil from a recent repair. Tess confirmed it, and like Mike, he passed the lie detector test. His behavior, though, kept him in the spotlight. He'd seemed nervous, evasive, his eyes darting when questioned. Was it guilt, or just the weight of being near such horror? The detectives couldn't pin him down, and Tim slipped back into the background, a question mark without an answer. The investigation widened, pulling at the threads of Kathy's life. She was well-liked, a woman who radiated kindness, her smile a fixture at neighborhood gatherings. No enemies, no feuds, no reason for someone to hate her this much. Yet the violence suggested something personal, a grudge that burned hot and deep. Detectives interviewed friends, family, anyone who'd crossed Kathy's path. A name began to surface, spoken in hushed tones. Greg, Kathy's brother-in-law, her sister's husband. Greg was a man who carried shadows with him, his presence at family gatherings marked by an unease that Kathy had confided to close friends. She'd mentioned his inappropriate comments, the way his gaze lingered too long, the subtle advances she'd brushed off. Greg had a criminal record, petty theft, drug possession, and a reputation for volatility, especially when high. Could he have crossed a line that night, his obsession turning deadly? Evidence began to pile up, though it was frustratingly inconclusive. Greg's fingerprints were found in the house, but he was a frequent visitor, his presence expected. A single hair caught in the cord binding Kathy's wrists matched his profile, but hair evidence was shaky, easily dismissed in court. Blood type analysis from the scene placed Greg in a narrow 2% of the population, a tantalizing clue that wasn't enough to arrest him. The detectives leaned hard, questioning Greg in a small, airless room. He was cagey, his answers clipped, his eyes avoiding theirs. "I loved Kathy like a sister," he said, his voice flat. "I'd never hurt her." But something in his demeanor felt wrong, a crack in the facade that kept the case alive. The years crept by and the case grew cold. Houston's crime wave demanded attention, and Kathy's file slipped to the back of a cabinet, a tragedy among many. Her parents aged, their hope fading with each passing anniversary. Mike remarried, raising his children with the weight of their mother's absence. The suburb moved on, new families filling the house where Kathy died, unaware of its ghosts. But science was evolving, and in the late 1990s, forensic advancements offered a new chance. In 1998, a partial DNA profile from the crime scene was retested, narrowing the suspect pool further. Greg remained in that 2%, his name a stubborn shadow. The breakthrough came in 2002, 15 years after the murder. Catherine Long, a forensic scientist with a reputation for tenacity, revisited the evidence. The light cord preserved in an evidence locker held a secret trace DNA, faint but viable. Long's meticulous work extracted a profile that matched Greg with near certainty. The odds of it being someone else were astronomical. Detectives reopened the case, their pulse quickening. Greg, now older, His life a patchwork of failed jobs and strained relationships, was living in a nearby town. They brought him in, the interrogation room a mirror of the one he'd faced years ago. This time, the evidence was ironclad. Greg's facade crumbled under the weight of the DNA. He didn't confess, not yet, but his silence spoke volumes. While awaiting trial, he shared a cell with a man who'd later testified to a chilling conversation. Greg, high on smuggled drugs, had rambled about that night, his words a twisted confession. He'd gone to Kathy's house, strung out, his mind a haze of need and anger. She'd let him in, trusting him as family, but his intentions were anything but from me. When she resisted, his rage erupted, the knife an extension of his unraveling mind. The details matched the crime scene too closely to dismiss. 16 stabs, the cord, the assault. It was as if Greg had been waiting to unburden himself, the guilt of poison he could no longer contain. In 2004, Greg faced a courtroom packed with Kathy's family, their eyes burning with grief and fury. He pleaded guilty, sparing them a trial but robbing them of the chance to hear him admit his betrayal aloud. The judge sentenced him to 45 years, a number that felt both too long and too short. Kathy's sister, Greg's wife, sat in stunned silence, her world shattered by the man she'd loved. Greg's health deteriorated in prison, liver cancer claiming him after just 4 years. His death was a footnote, a quiet end to a loud tragedy. Kathy's memory endures in the hearts of those who loved her. Her children, now adults, carry the weight of a mother stolen too soon. Her parents, aged by loss, found solace in justice, however delayed. The house where she died stands as it did, its walls silent witnesses to a night that changed everything. In Houston's sprawling suburbs, where the oaks still cast their shadows, Kathy Martin's story is a whisper in the wind, a reminder that even in the safest places, darkness can find a way in. Part 2. The abduction of Michaela Garrett, Hayward, California, 1988. On a crisp November morning in 1988, the small town of Hayward, California buzzed with the quiet rhythm of suburban life. Tucked between San Francisco's urban sprawl and the rolling hills of the East Bay, Hayward was a place where children rode bikes until dusk, where neighbors waved from porches, where safety felt like a promise. For 9-year-old Michaela Garrett, born in 1979, that promise was the backdrop of her childhood. A bright, curious girl with a smile that lit up rooms, Michaela was the heart of her family, her mother Sharon's pride, her siblings' protector. November 19th, 1988 began like any other Saturday, with Michaela and her best friend Katrina planning a trip to the Rainbow Market, a corner store just blocks from their homes. They wanted candy, a simple treat to cap a morning of play. But that day, the ordinary would fracture, and Michaela would vanish into a mystery that haunts Hayward to this day. The Rainbow Market was a familiar haunt, its aisles stocked with penny candies and soda bottles, a magnet for neighborhood kids. Michaela and Katrina, inseparable as only childhood friends can be, rode their scooters to the store, the autumn air sharp against their cheeks. They parked the scooters outside, leaning them against the wall, and stepped into the shop, their laughter mingling with the jingle of the doorbell. Inside, they pulled their coins, debating between gummy worms and chocolate bars, unaware that eyes were watching. A man, unnoticed by the girls, lingered near the store, his presence a shadow in the morning light. The cashier, a woman with a knack for noticing details, later recalled a man in his 30s, mustached, his gaze fixed on the children. But in the moment, he was just another customer, unremarkable, forgettable. The girls made their purchase and stepped outside, the sun climbing higher. Michaela reached for her scooter, but wasn't it where she'd left it? The confusion flickered across her face. The scooter had been moved, propped against a tree several feet away, as if someone had tampered with it. Katrina, ever cautious, stayed close to the store, but Michaela, bold and trusting, walked toward the tree to retrieve her prize. That's when it happened. A car, a beige or tan sedan, its details blurred by time, pulled up. A man grabbed Michaela, his movements swift and practiced, and shoved her into the vehicle. Katrina screamed, her voice piercing the morning calm, but the car was already peeling away, tires screeching against asphalt. Michaela was gone, leaving only her scooter and a void that would swallow her family whole. Katrina ran into the store, her words tumbling out in a panic. The cashier dialed 911, and within minutes, Hayward police flooded the scene. The parking lot, once a place of carefree errands, became a crime scene cordoned off with yellow tape. Officers questioned Katrina, her small frame trembling as she described the man. Young, maybe in his 20s, with acne scars and fox-like eyes, her description clashed with the cashier's memory of the mustache man, sowing confusion from the start. The police seized Michaela's scooter, its handlebars dusted for prints, and scoured the area for witnesses. A nearby resident reported seeing a beige car speeding away, but the details were vague, the license plate a blur. The abduction, executed in broad daylight, was brazen, calculated, and terrifyingly efficient. Hayward, a town unaccustomed to such horror, reeled. Michaela's mother, Sharon, was at work when the call came. Her knees buckled as the officer's voice delivered the news. Michaela was gone, taken in an instant. Sharon raced home, her mind a storm of fear and denial. The Garrett house became a hub of desperation filled with family, friends, and police. Flyers with Michaela's photo, a beaming girl with dark hair and hopeful eyes, plastered telephone poles and storefronts. Volunteers combed the streets, calling her name, their voices swallowed by the wind. Sharon clung to hope, her daughter's absence a physical ache. "She's out there," she told reporters, her voice breaking. "Someone knows something." The investigation surged forward, fueled by urgency and dread. The FBI joined the Hayward police, their resources amplifying the search. The conflicting witness accounts were a hurdle, but detectives pieced together what they could. Katrina's description suggested a younger perpetrator, possibly a local drifter, while the cashier's mustached man pointed to someone older, perhaps more methodical. The scooter's relocation was a chilling detail. It hadn't been stolen, only moved, a deliberate act to lure Michaela away from safety. The handprint on the scooter offered hope, but 1988's forensic technology was limited, the print too smudged to yield a match. The footprints found in a nearby park where the car might have paused were cast in plaster, but they led nowhere. The beige sedan, the one solid lead, seemed to vanish into the ether, its description too common to narrow the search. Suspects emerged, each a flicker of possibility in the dark. Lawrence Bender, a local man known for odd behavior around children, was questioned early on. His unkempt appearance and history of loitering near schools made him a person of interest, but his alibi, backed by coworkers, held firm. Detectives pressed him, searching his home for any trace of Michaela, but found nothing. Bender faded from the suspect list, a dead end in a case full of them. Another lead came from Roger Haggard, an inmate serving time for unrelated charges. He claimed to know where Michaela was buried, spinning a tale of a shallow grave in a remote field. Police, desperate for a break, followed his directions, digging through dirt and hope. The search yielded only rocks and frustration. Haggard's story was a cruel lie, a bid for leniency. Though the case drew parallels to other child abductions in the region, raising fears of a serial predator. Curtis Dean Anderson, a convicted kidnapper and murderer, became a focal point in the 1990s. Anderson, a drifter with a rap sheet stretching back decades, had been linked to the abduction of another California girl, Ziana Fairchild. His methods, snatching children in plain sight, using charm to lower their guard, matched Michaela's case. When questioned, Anderson was coy, neither confirming nor denying involvement. "I've done things," he told detectives, a smirk playing on his lips, but no evidence tied him to Michaela, and his death in prison in 2007 closed that door, leaving only questions. Michaela's family refused to let her fade. Sharon became a tireless advocate, speaking at vigils, pleading on television, her voice a beacon in the darkness. "She's my baby," she said, tears streaming. "I'll never stop looking." The community rallied, organizing searches that stretched into weeks, then months. A tip line buzzed with calls. Sightings of girls who looked like Michaela, reports of suspicious cars, but each lead crumbled under scrutiny. The years piled on. Each anniversary of Michaela's disappearance, a fresh wound. Sharon kept her daughter's room untouched, a shrine to hope, its walls lined with stuffed animals and drawings. Michaela's siblings grew up, their childhoods shadowed by absence. Hayward changed, too. Its innocence eroded. Parents now clutching their children's hands a little tighter. The case grew cold, a file buried under newer tragedies. Detectives retired, their notes yellowing in evidence lockers. Forensic science, however, was advancing, and in the early 2000s, hope flickered anew. The handprint on Michaela's scooter, once a dead end, was re-examined with improved techniques. Still, no match emerged. In 2012, a new suspect surfaced, Wesley Shermantine, half of the infamous Speed Freak killers. A duo responsible for multiple murders in California, Shermantine, serving life, suggested his partner, Loren Herzog, resembled the sketch from Michaela's case. Excavations followed, guided by Shermantine's cryptic directions, but the digs uncovered only animal bones. Herzog, dead by suicide, couldn't be questioned. And another lead slipped away. The turning point came in 2020, 32 years after Michaela vanished. Advances in fingerprint analysis, coupled with a national database, breathed life into the case. The smudged print on the scooter, preserved through decades, yielded a match. David Garrick, a man with a history of violence stretching back to the 1975s. Born in 1954, Garrick was no stranger to law enforcement. In 1977, he'd been convicted of sexual assault, his victim a young girl. Released after a short sentence, he struck again in 1988, murdering Margaret Ball, a crime eerily similar to Michaela's abduction. Garrick had been in Hayward that November, living just miles from the Rainbow Market. His criminal record, coupled with the fingerprint, painted a damning picture. Detectives tracked Garrick down, now in his 60s, living a quiet life under the radar. His interrogation was a study in evasion. Calm denials, vague answers, a refusal to meet the officer's eyes. "I don't know any Michaela," he said, his voice steady but hollow. The evidence, though, was undeniable. The fingerprint placed him at the scene, and his history suggested a pattern. Young girls, moments of opportunity, a predator's instinct. In 2020, Garrick was charged with Michaela's kidnapping and murder, the prosecution seeking the death penalty. The case, however, had a gaping hole. Michaela's body was never found. Without it, the trial hinged on circumstantial evidence, a challenge in a case so old. Sharon Garrett, battling cancer, faced the trial with a mix of hope and heartbreak. She took the stand, her voice trembling as she described her daughter's laugh, her dreams, her light. "I've waited 32 years for this," she told the courtroom, her eyes fixed on Garrett. "I need to know what happened to my girl." The defense argued the fingerprint was contaminated, the case too old to trust. But the prosecution's narrative was compelling. Garrick, a man who'd killed before, had seen Michaela, moved her scooter, and taken her in a moment of twisted impulse. The trial continues, its outcome uncertain, a verdict still hanging in the balance. Sharon passed away in 2022, her cancer claiming her before the trial's end. She died believing justice was near, her final days spent writing letters to Michaela, promising to find her in whatever lies beyond. Hayward mourns still, its streets quieter, its trust fractured. Michaela's face remains on fading flyers, a symbol of a girl stolen, a mystery unresolved. The Rainbow Market stands as it did, its windows reflecting a town that can't forget. Somewhere, Michaela's truth waits, buried in the shadows, a whisper that refuses to fade. Part 3. The Framing of Michelle Hadley. Anaheim, California, 2016. In the sun-soaked sprawl of Anaheim, California, where palm trees sway against a backdrop of suburban dreams. 2016 was a year of quiet routines for most. For Michelle Hadley, born in 1986, it was a year that would plunge her into a nightmare of betrayal and deception. A twisted plot that would unravel the lives of those around her. Michelle, a 30-year-old with a sharp mind and a resilient spirit, had built a life of ambition in Orange County. An MBA student with a knack for numbers, she worked part-time, her days filled with textbooks and aspirations. Her marriage to Ian Diaz, a U.S. Marshal with a steady gaze and a hidden edge, had ended in a bitter divorce, their union fractured by disputes over a condo mortgage and unspoken resentments. By June 2016, Michelle had moved on, piecing together a new chapter, unaware that her past was about to drag her into a web of lies so intricate it would nearly destroy her. Anaheim, known for Disneyland's fairy tale glow, was a place where darkness rarely lingered in the public eye. But beneath the surface, shadows thrived. Michelle's divorce from Ian had been contentious, their arguments echoing through legal filings and late-night calls. Ian, a man whose badge lent him authority, harbored a grudge, his pride wounded by the end of their marriage. He'd moved on too, engaged to Angela Connell, a woman whose charm masked a calculating mind. Angela, with her polished smile and fierce ambition, seemed the perfect partner for Ian. Their engagement a fresh start, but something simmered between them, a shared bitterness toward Michelle, a spark that would ignite a plan so sinister it would shake Anaheim's quiet streets. It began with an email. On a warm June morning, Angela opened her inbox to find a message that chilled her blood. The sender, anonymous but venomous, threatened her life, detailing her daily routines with eerie precision. "I know where you live," the email read, its words laced with menace. "You won't see me coming." Angela, shaken, showed the email to Ian, who wasted no time contacting the Anaheim Police Department. The threats escalated, each email more graphic, promising violence and pain. Then came the Craigslist ads. Postings in the casual encounters section offering Angela's name, address, and phone number, inviting strangers to her home for fantasy roleplay that bordered on predatory. Men began showing up at Angela's apartment, confused but expectant, their presence a violation that left her terrified. Ian, protective and furious, demanded action. The police traced the emails and ads, their digital breadcrumbs pointing to a single name: Michelle Hadley. Michelle was stunned when officers knocked on her door. A slender woman with a quiet demeanor, she stood in her apartment surrounded by textbooks and coffee mugs as detectives laid out the accusations. "You're sending death threats," they said, their voices firm. "You're posting ads to harass Angela Connell." Michelle's heart pounded, her mind racing. "I didn't do this," she insisted, her voice steady despite the fear. "I don't even know Angela." But the evidence was damning. The emails had been sent from an account linked to Michelle's IP address. The Craigslist posts tied to her phone number. She was arrested on June 24, 2016, charged with stalking, criminal threats, and attempted forcible rape, a charge tied to the ad's sinister intent. Bail was set at $100,000, 0 cents, an impossible sum for a student scraping by. Michelle sat in a cell, the concrete walls closing in, her life unraveling with each passing hour. The case seemed open and shut. Michelle, the scorned ex-wife, had motive: jealousy, resentment, a desire to reclaim Ian or ruin his happiness. The digital trail was clear, the threats laced with personal details only someone close to Ian could know. But Michelle knew something was wrong. She'd received strange alerts weeks earlier, notifications about unauthorized attempts to access her email. She'd reported them to her provider, dismissing them as spam, but now they loom large. "Someone's setting me up," she told her lawyer, her voice a mix of desperation and conviction. "It's Ian or Angela. They hate me." Her lawyer, skeptical but intrigued, began digging, but the evidence was a mountain, and Michelle's claims sounded like the pleas of the guilty. While Michelle languished in jail, the threats stopped. Angela's life returned to normal, her fear fading as quickly as it had come. But Michelle's nightmare deepened. Released on bail, posted by her parents who mortgaged their home, she faced a second arrest in July, when new charges surfaced. This time bail was $1 million, 0 cents, a sum that chained her to a cell. The media pounced, painting Michelle as a vengeful ex. Her mugshot splashed across local news, her reputation crumbled, her dreams of an MBA fading behind bars. Yet in the silence of her cell, Michelle pieced together fragments of truth. Ian's anger during their divorce, Angela's icy demeanor at court hearings. Something didn't add up. She clung to one thought: the truth would save her, if only someone would listen. The turning point came from an unlikely source. Michelle's parents, relentless in their belief in her innocence, they hired a private investigator, a grizzled former cop named Tom Reynolds, who approached the case with a skeptic's eye. Reynolds combed through Michelle's digital footprint, noticing anomalies the police had overlooked. The email account used for the threats had been accessed from multiple devices, including one tied to Angela's apartment. The Craigslist ads, posted during hours Michelle was in class or at work, suggested a timeline that didn't fit. Reynolds dug deeper, uncovering a bombshell. Michelle had been in the hospital, recovering from a minor surgery, when the first threatening email was sent. Her phone records showed no activity, her whereabouts confirmed by medical staff. The digital trail, so damning at first, was starting to crack. Then, a twist no one saw coming. Ian, the protective fiancé, posted Michelle's $1 million 0 cents bail. The move stunned everyone, her parents, her lawyer, even the prosecutors. Why would Ian, who'd called Michelle a stalker, pay to free her? His explanation was vague, a mumble about fairness, but his eyes betrayed unease. Michelle, released but under house arrest, felt a chill. Ian's gesture wasn't kindness, it was a chess move, a way to shift the narrative. She confided in Reynolds, her voice low. He's involved. I know it. He and Angela planned this. Reynolds, now convinced of the setup, turned his focus to Angela, the woman at the center of the storm. Angela Connell was a puzzle. A paralegal with a polished exterior, she'd charmed Ian with her wit and ambition, but her past held shadows. A former boyfriend revealed Angela's history of deception. She'd faked a cancer diagnosis to manipulate him, weaving a web of lies that collapsed when he demanded proof. Reynolds saw a pattern. Angela thrived on control, on bending others to her will. He suspected she'd orchestrated the threats, using Michelle as a scapegoat to solidify her bond with Ian and eliminate a perceived rival. But proving it was another matter. The digital evidence was sophisticated, routed through VPNs and burner accounts, a level of cunning that suggested planning, not impulse. The breakthrough came in late 2016 when Reynolds obtained CCTV footage from Angela's apartment complex. The video, grainy but revealing, showed Angela alone on nights when new threats were sent, her laptop glowing in the dark. Another clip captured her scratching her arms, leaving marks she later claimed were from an attack tied to the Craigslist ads. The injuries, Reynolds noted, were superficial, self-inflicted. A performance for sympathy. Then came the smoking gun, a fake sonogram, found in Angela's trash, bearing the name of a child she'd claimed to be carrying. Angela had shown the sonogram to Ian, claiming Michelle's threats targeted their unborn baby, a lie that fueled his outrage. The sonogram was a fabrication, its details mismatched with medical records. Angela's house of cards was collapsing. Detectives, initially dismissive of Michelle's claims, reopened the case. They traced the VPNs, finding purchases linked to Angela's credit card. Her laptop, seized under warrant, revealed deleted files, drafts of the threatening emails saved in a hidden folder. The Craigslist ads, posted from a burner phone, were tied to a SIM card Angela had bought at a convenience store, captured on yet another camera. The evidence was overwhelming, a digital confession of her guilt. But what of Ian? His role was murkier. He'd known about the threats, perhaps encouraged them, but the evidence pointed to Angela as the mastermind. Ian's decision to post Michelle's bail, investigators now believed, was a panicked attempt to deflect suspicion, a move that backfired spectacularly. In 2019, Angela was arrested, charged with 10 felonies, including perjury, stalking, and conspiracy. Her polished facade crumbled in the interrogation room, her denials giving way to silence. She pleaded guilty, accepting a 5-year sentence, her ambition reduced to a prison cell. Ian faced his own reckoning in 2021, arrested for conspiracy and sentenced to 5 years. His badge, once a symbol of authority, was stripped away. His career, a casualty of his complicity. Michelle's charges were dropped, her name cleared, but the scars remained. The media, quick to vilify her, offered half-hearted apologies. Their headlines now focused on Angela's deceit. Michelle rebuilt her life with quiet determination. She completed her MBA, moved to New York, and started a consulting firm. Her resilience, a rebuke to those who doubted her. She spoke rarely of the ordeal, but when she did, her voice was steady, tempered by survival. They tried to break me, she told a friend, but they didn't know who I was. Anaheim, for all its sunshine, bore the stain of the case, a reminder that evil doesn't always lurk in dark alleys. It can hide behind a smile, a ring, a lie. The case of Michelle Hadley is a twisted tale of jealousy and vengeance, a plot worthy of a thriller yet grounded in the mundane cruelty of human hearts. Angela's scheme, fueled by envy and insecurity, nearly destroyed an innocent woman, exposing the fragility of truth in a digital age. Ian's betrayal, whether active or passive, underscored the danger of blind loyalty. For Michelle, justice was a hard-won victory, but the cost was years of her life, her trust, her peace. In the quiet of Anaheim streets, where the palms still sway, the echoes of this deception linger. A warning that the past can strike when you least expect it. Part 4, The Disappearance of Natalee Holloway. Aruba, 2005. In the sun-drenched paradise of Aruba, where turquoise waves lap against white sand and the air hums with the promise of escape, May 2005 was a time of celebration for a group of Alabama teenagers. Among them was Natalee Holloway, an 18-year-old from Mountain Brook, born in 1986, whose infectious smile and boundless optimism lit up every room. Natalee was the quintessential all-American girl, blonde, blue-eyed, a straight-A student with dreams of becoming a doctor. She just graduated from high school, her future stretching out like the Caribbean horizon. To mark the milestone, she joined 124 classmates on a senior trip to Aruba, a Dutch island known for its safety and charm. For Natalee, it was a chance to savor freedom before college, to dance under the stars and make memories. But on May 3rd, 2005, the final night of her trip, Natalee stepped into a nightclub and vanished, leaving behind a mystery that would grip the world and shatter her family's heart. Aruba in 2005 was a haven for tourists, its beaches and casinos a magnet for Americans seeking respite. Natalee and her friends, chaperoned but given freedom, embraced the island's nightlife. They stayed at the Holiday Inn, its pastel walls a backdrop to their laughter. Natalee, described by friends as responsible yet adventurous, threw herself into the trip. Her days filled with snorkeling and her nights with dancing. On May 29, the group descended on Carlos and Charlie's, a raucous bar in Arancastad, its neon lights pulsing with reggae and pop. Natalee, in a sundress, moved through the crowd, her laughter mingling with the music. She was alive, vibrant, untouchable, or so it seemed. As the night wore on, Natalee caught the eye of a young man, tall and lean with a disarming smile. His name was Joran van der Sloot, a 17-year-old Dutch resident of Aruba known for his charm and his penchant for gambling. Joran, accompanied by two friends, Deepak and Satish Kalpo, brothers from Suriname, worked the bar like seasoned players, their eyes scanning for tourists. Joran approached Natalee, his accent smooth, his demeanor confident. They talked, danced, shared drinks. To Natalee, he was a fleeting adventure, a story to tell back home. To Joran, she was something else, a target, a game, a moment of control. Surveillance footage later showed them together, Natalee's head tilted back in laughter, unaware of the danger in his gaze. Around 1:30 a.m., as Carlos and Charlie's began to empty, Natalee left with Joran, Deepak, and Satish. Friends urged her to stay, their voices drowned by the music, but Natalee waved them off, her judgment clouded by alcohol and the thrill of the night. The four climbed into Deepak's silver Honda, the car weaving through Oranjestad's quiet streets. Natalee was due back at the Holiday Inn by morning, her flight home scheduled for May 30, but as the sun rose over Aruba's beaches, her hotel room remained empty, her suitcase untouched. Natalee Holloway was gone. Beth Holloway, Natalee's mother, was in Alabama when the call came. A chaperone's voice, strained with panic, delivered the news. Natalee hadn't returned. Beth's world tilted, her maternal instincts screaming. She boarded a private jet with her husband, Jug Twitty, landing in Aruba hours later, her heart pounding with dread. The Holiday Inn buzzed with police, classmates, and reporters, the air thick with confusion. Beth stormed through the lobby, clutching a photo of Natalee, her voice raw as she demanded answers. "Where's my daughter?" she asked, her eyes searching every face. The Aruban police, unaccustomed to high-profile cases, moved slowly, their initial response a mix of bureaucracy and indifference. For Beth, every minute was a lifetime, every delay, a betrayal. The investigation began with a maddening lack of urgency. Natalee's friends recounted her night at Carlos and Charlie's, pointing to Joran and the Kalpoe brothers. Police tracked them down, their stories rehearsed but slippery. Joran claimed he dropped Natalee at the Holiday Inn around 2 a.m., saying she'd stumbled out of the car, refusing help. Deepak and Satish backed him, their accounts identical, suspiciously polished, but hotel security footage showed no sign of Natalee, and a guard confirmed no one matching her description had returned. The lie was the first crack in their facade, a signal that the truth was buried deep. Beth, refusing to wait, took matters into her own hands. She confronted Joran at his family's home in Newark, a modern villa shielded by palms. Joran's father, Paulus van der Sloot, a prominent lawyer training to be a judge, greeted her with a practiced calm. Joran, lounging by the pool, repeated his story, his eyes avoiding Beth's. "She was fine when I left her," he said, his voice flat. Beth's intuition screamed, "He was lying!" His nonchalance a mask, polished, protective, and evasive, ushered her out, promising cooperation. But Beth sensed a wall of family closing ranks. She left with nothing but suspicion. Her daughter's absence, a weight she carried alone. The Aruban police, under pressure from Beth and a growing media frenzy, arrested Joran, Deepak, and Satish on June 9. Their interrogations were a tangle of contradictions. Joran's story shifted. He now claimed he'd taken Natalee to a beach near the California lighthouse, where they'd kissed before she asked to be dropped off. Deepak and Satish questioned separately, fumbled details. Their timelines misaligned. The police searched the Honda, finding traces of blonde hair, but DNA tests were inconclusive. Joran's home yielded nothing. No clothes, no souvenirs, no trace of Natalee. The arrests made headlines, but without a body or hard evidence, the suspects were released, their smirks a slap to Beth's hope. Aruba's investigation faltered, hampered by inexperience and, some whispered, corruption. The island's economy relied on tourism, and a missing American girl was bad for business. Rumors swirled of police mishandling evidence, of tip-offs to the Vandersloot family. Beth relentless, organized searches with volunteers, scouring beaches, dunes, and landfills. Divers plumbed the ocean depths, their lights piercing the dark, but found only coral and sand. Natalee's face dominated cable news, her smile a haunting contrast to the grim updates. Beth appeared on every talk show, her voice breaking but resolute. "I'll find her," she vowed, her eyes burning with a mother's love. Joran, free and defiant, reveled in the attention. He granted interviews, spinning new tales with each microphone. One day he claimed Natalee had drowned, the next she'd run off with a stranger. His contradictions piled up, but his confidence never wavered. Detectives noted his history. Expelled from school for fighting, a regular at casinos, a predator who targeted tourist girls. Women came forward, describing Joran's aggressive advances, his temper when rejected, yet without physical evidence. He was untouchable, a ghost in the investigation's grasp. In 2007, a Dutch journalist, Peter R. de Vries, took up the case, his reputation for cracking mysteries a beacon of hope. De Vries orchestrated a sting, befriending Joran and wiring a car with hidden cameras. In 2008, the footage aired, a bombshell that shook the case. Joran, high and unguarded, confessed to a friend, Patrick Vanderim, that Natalee had died on the beach. "She was drunk," he said, his voice cold. "She stopped breathing. I panicked, called a friend, and we dumped her body in the ocean." He laughed, describing how Paulus had helped cover it up. The confession was chilling, but Joran later recanted, claiming he'd lied to impress Patrick. Aruba's legal system, bound by strict evidence rules, deemed the tape inadmissible. Joran walked free, the truth slipping through Beth's fingers once more. The case took a darker turn in 2010, when Joran resurfaced in Peru. On May 3rd, exactly 5 years after Natalee's disappearance, he murdered Stephanie Flores, a 21-year-old student in a Lima hotel room. The parallels were eerie. Stephanie, like Natalee, was young, vibrant, and met Joran in a casino. Security footage showed them entering his room. Only Joran left. Stephanie was found beaten and strangled, her jewelry stolen. Joran fled to Chile but was arrested, his arrogance finally his undoing. Convicted of murder, he was sentenced to 28 years, a small justice that did little for Natalee's case. Beth watched the news, her heart torn between relief and anguish. "He's a monster," she said. "But where's my daughter?" The Flores murder cast new light on Joran's past. Peruvian police found emails on his laptop sent in 2005 hinting at Natalee's death. One, to an unknown recipient, read, "It's done, she's gone." The emails were circumstantial, inadmissible in Aruba, but they fueled Beth's resolve. She pushed for Joran's extradition to the U.S., where he faced extortion charges. In 2010, Joran's had demanded $250,000 from Beth for information on Natalee's body, taking $25 before vanishing. The FBI, tracking the wire transfer, built a case, but Aruba's cooperation was lukewarm, the island wary of revisiting its failure. In 2023, a breakthrough came. Joran, facing U.S. charges, was extradited from Peru as part of a plea deal. In a Birmingham courtroom, he confessed to Natalee's murder, his voice devoid of remorse. "She wanted to go back to the hotel," he said. I wanted to stay on the beach. She resisted, so I hit her with a cinder block. She didn't move anymore. He described dragging her body into the ocean, the waves swallowing her forever. The confession, part of a deal to reduce his extortion sentence, was a bitter victory. Joran received 20 years to run concurrently with his Peru term, meaning no additional time for Natalee's death. Aruba's case remains open, her body unrecovered, the confession legally toothless, on the island. Beth, now older, her hair streaked with gray, stood outside the courtroom, her eyes hollow. I have closure, she said, but not peace. Natalee's absence is a wound that never heals, her memory preserved in scholarships and safety programs Beth founded. Aruba, once a paradise, bears the stain of its failures. Missed evidence, botched searches, a system that let a predator slip through. Joran behind bars remains a cipher, his confession a half-truth that raises as many questions as it answers. Did he act alone? Was Paulus complicit? The ocean keeps its secrets and Natalee's voice is silent. In Mountain Brook, Natalee's room remains as it was, her cheerleading pom-poms on the shelf, her diary unopened. Her classmates, now parents themselves, speak of her in hushed tones, a reminder of youth cut short. Aruba's beaches still draw tourists, but for those who know, the island's beauty hides a shadow. Natalee Holloway's story is a cautionary tale of trust misplaced, of systems flawed, of a mother's love that outlasts despair. Somewhere, in the depths of the Caribbean, Natalee's truth waits, a whisper carried by the waves, a mystery that refuses to rest. Part 5, The Murder of Sierra Jowkin, Ohio, 2016. In the rolling fields of Fulton County, Ohio, where cornstalks sway under endless skies and small towns hum with the quiet rhythm of rural life, July 19, 2016 dawned with the promise of summer. For Sierra Jowkin, the 20-year-old born in 1996, it was a day to embrace the freedom of youth. A student at the University of Toledo, Sierra was the embodiment of vitality. Blonde, athletic, her smile a beacon in her close-knit community of Delta. She worked part-time at a local store, her evenings filled with laughter alongside her boyfriend Josh, and her nights dreaming of a future in nursing. That afternoon, Sierra set out on her bicycle, her usual route winding through the familiar country roads near her family's home. It was a ritual, a moment of solitude under the open sky. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, Sierra vanished, her bike abandoned, her life extinguished in a crime that would sear itself into Ohio. Delta, a town of barely 3,000, was the kind of place where doors stayed unlocked and neighbors knew each other's stories. Sierra, the youngest of 4 siblings, was a local darling, her track medals displayed proudly in her parents' living room. Her mother, Sheila, described her as the glue of the family, her energy binding them together. Sierra's life was simple but full of college classes, weekend bonfires, and bike rides that let her escape the weight of the world. On July 19th, she kissed Josh goodbye, promising to be back for dinner. She pulled on a tank top, clipped her phone to her waistband, and pedaled into the evening, the air warm and heavy with the scent of earth. Her route took her past fields and farmhouses, the kind of landscape that felt safe, eternal. But safety in Delta that summer was an illusion. As dusk settled, Sheila grew uneasy. Sierra was punctual, her phone always buzzing with texts or calls. By 8 p.m., her silence was deafening. Sheila called Josh, her voice tight. Have you heard from her? Josh, at home, hadn't. He jumped in his truck, retracing Sierra's route, his headlights cutting through the twilight. Near County Road 6, he found her bike, discarded in a ditch, its frame twisted, a tire punctured. Nearby, Sierra's sunglasses lay in the dirt, glinting under the moon. Panic surged. Josh dialed 911, his voice breaking. Something's wrong, he said. She's gone. The Fulton County Sheriff's Office descended, their flashlights sweeping the road, their radios crackling with urgency. Sierra, job and vibrant and beloved, had vanished into the night. The search began with a ferocity born of fear. Deputies cordoned off the area, the ditch now a crime scene, its edges trampled by volunteers who joined within hours. Sierra's family, her parents, siblings, aunts, and uncles combed the fields, their voices calling her name, their hope battling the sinking dread. Flyers with Sierra's photo, her blue eyes bright and trusting, plastered every pole and storefront in Delta. The community rallied, neighbors leaving porch lights on, churches holding vigils, their prayers a fragile shield against the unknown. Sheriff Roy Miller, a weathered man with deep ties to the county, took the case personally. "We'll find her," he told Sheila, his jaw set. But the clock was ticking, and the fields held secrets. The investigation zeroed in on the bike. It wasn't stolen. Its presence suggested Sierra had been taken, not lost. A blood-stained helmet, found 50 yards away, sent a chill through the team. The blood, fresh and sticky, was sent for DNA testing, its presence a grim hint of violence. Tire tracks in the dirt, faint but distinct, suggested a vehicle had stopped nearby. Deputies canvassed the area, knocking on farmhouse doors. Their questions met with shaken heads. No one had seen Sierra, but a farmer reported a strange truck parked near his field that evening, its driver obscured by dusk. The description, dark, older, nondescript, was maddeningly vague, but it was a start. Suspicion turned briefly to Josh. Boyfriends in cases like this were always scrutinized. Their love weighed against the possibility of rage. Josh, a lanky 22-year-old with a gentle demeanor, was distraught, his hands trembling as he answered questions. "I'd never hurt her," he said, tears streaking his face. His alibi was solid. He'd been home, texting friends, his phone records, a timeline of innocence. A polygraph test administered in a sterile room confirmed his truth. Josh was cleared, but the scrutiny left him hollow, his grief compounded by suspicion. Sheila, clinging to her son-in-law-to-be, whispered, "We know you loved her." The focus shifted outward to the quiet roads where Sierra had last been seen. On July 22, 3 days after her disappearance, a tip came from a neighboring farm. A worker tending fields near County Road 7 noticed a fresh pile of dirt in a cornfield, its edges uneven, as if hastily dug. The sheriff's team, guided by instinct, descended with shovels and dogs. The air was thick with tension, the corn stalks whispering as they parted. The dogs, trained to scent death, grew agitated, their barks piercing the silence. As deputies dug, their blades struck something soft. A body, wrapped in a tarp, bound with duct tape. Sheila, waiting nearby, collapsed when the news reached her. It was Sierra, her hands tied behind her back, her feet shackled with handcuffs, an object lodged in her mouth, restricting her airway. The autopsy confirmed the worst. Sierra had been sexually assaulted and suffocated. Her death, a brutal act of control. The cornfield, once a symbol of Delta's heartland, was now a grave. The discovery ignited fury and grief. Delta's streets filled with mourners, their candles flickering in the night, their signs demanding justice. Sheriff Miller, his face etched with exhaustion, vowed to find the killer. The investigation intensified, forensic teams scouring the crime scene for traces of the monster who'd done this. The tarp yielded fibers, the duct tape a partial fingerprint, but the real breakthrough came from Sierra's belongings. Her phone, recovered near the bike, held GPS data pinpointing her last movements. It led to a stretch of road near a property owned by James Worley, a 57-year-old farmer with a shadowed past. Worley was no stranger to law enforcement. In 1990, he'd been convicted of abducting a woman, binding her and holding her in his barn, only releasing her when she feigned affection. Sentenced to 3 years, he'd returned to Delta, living quietly on his family's land, his presence unremarkable to most. But neighbors whispered of his odd behavior. Late-night drives, a barn kept locked, a demeanor that felt off. Deputies searched Worley's property, their boots crunching on gravel as they approached his ramshackle home. Inside, they found a chilling tableau, a barn converted into a makeshift dungeon, its walls lined with restraints, duct tape, and women's clothing. A blood-stained helmet matching Sierra's sat on a shelf, its presence a silent accusation. DNA from the scene, on the tape, the tarp, even a mattress matched Sierra's, and a trace of Worley's own DNA sealed the link. Worley was arrested on July 24th, his face expressionless, his handcuffs clicked shut. In interrogation, he was defiant, claiming he'd found Sierra's bike and tried to help. His story unraveled under scrutiny. No calls to police, no witnesses, just a barn full of horrors. The partial fingerprint on the duct tape matched his, and tire tracks from his truck aligned with those near the crime scene. Worley's past abduction case, eerily similar, painted him as a predator who'd escalated to murder. The evidence was overwhelming, a mosaic of guilt that left no room for doubt. The investigation uncovered more about Worley's life. Born in 1959, he'd grown up in Delta, his childhood marked by isolation and a temper that flared without warning. Neighbors recalled his obsession with control, his barn a fortress where he retreated for hours. A search of his home revealed journals, their pages filled with cryptic rants about women, power, and retribution. One entry, dated weeks before Sierra's death, read, "You'll never find her." The chilling words, though not a confession, hung heavy in the courtroom when Worley's trial began in 2018. Sierra's family, broken but resolute, filled the courtroom. Sheila, her face lined with grief, testified about her daughter's light, her voice cracking as she described finding Sierra's bike. Josh, now a shadow of the man he'd been, spoke of their plans. A wedding, a life cut short. The prosecution laid out the evidence with surgical precision: the DNA, the helmet, the barn's contents, Worley's history. The defense, grasping, argued the evidence was circumstantial, suggesting an unknown accomplice. But the jury, after 8 days of testimony, deliberated for just 6 hours. On March 15, 2018, they found Worley guilty on all counts: kidnapping, aggravated murder, and sexual assault. The judge, his voice steady, sentenced him to death, a penalty that brought cheers from Delta's streets but no solace to Sierra's kid. Worley's conviction was a victory, but it couldn't erase the pain. Sheila, speaking to reporters, clutched a photo of Sierra. "She was our everything," she said, tears falling. "Justice doesn't bring her back." Delta changed after Sierra's death, its innocence buried in that cornfield. Locks appeared on doors. Parents watched their children closer, and the roads where Sierra rode grew quiet. Worley, now on death row, awaits execution, his appeals dragging through courts, his silence a final act of defiance. Rumors persist of other victims, other secrets in his barn, but no evidence has surfaced, leaving only speculation. Sierra's memory endures in Delta. A scholarship in her name supports nursing students, a nod to her dream. Her track teammates run in her honor, their strides a tribute to her spirit. The cornfield, replanted, grows tall each summer, but for those who know, it's hallowed ground, a place where a young woman's light was snuffed out. The question of Sierra's final moments, what she felt, what she said, haunts her family. An answer buried with her. In Fulton County, where the skies stretch wide, Ira Jowsen's story is a whisper in the wind. A reminder that even in the heartland, darkness can find a home. Part 6, the shooting of Aya Hashem, Blackburn, UK 2020. In the industrial heart of Blackburn, Lancashire, where terraced houses line cobbled streets and the hum of daily life blends with the clatter of factories, May 17, 2020 unfolded under a sky bruised with clouds. For Aya Hashem, a 19-year-old born in 2001, it was a day like any other, filled with the quiet ambition that defined her. A law student at the University of Central Lancashire, Aya was a beacon of hope in her close Kit Iraqi family, her dark eyes bright with dreams of justice. She lived with her parents in a modest home on King Street, her days spent studying, her evenings helping her mother cook, her laughter a melody in their lives. That afternoon, Aya stepped outside, unaware that a web of vengeance spun far from her world would claim her life in a senseless act of violence that would shake Blackburn to its core. Blackburn, a former mill town in England's northwest, was a place of resilience, its multicultural fabric woven from generations of immigrants and locals. The Hashem family, who'd fled Iraq for a safer life, found community on King Street, their home a sanctuary of warmth. Aya, the eldest of 3, was their pride. Top of her class, a volunteer at a legal aid clinic, her future mapped out in courtrooms and advocacy. On May 17th, she was home, the COVID-19 lockdown loosening, allowing brief moments outdoors. Around 3 p.m., she stood near her front gate chatting with a neighbor, the air heavy with the scent of rain. Across the street, Wellington Road buzzed with activity, its car wash a hub for locals. Aya, lost in conversation, didn't notice the black Audi Q7 creeping along the road, its tinted windows hiding a deadly intent. The car wash, owned by Pashun Kanda, a 40-year-old entrepreneur, was more than a business. It was a battleground in a feud that had simmered for years. Pashun, known for his flash cars and sharp tongue, had clashed with Fura Suleiman, a 37-year-old dealer whose empire thrived on drugs and intimidation. Their rivalry, rooted in a 2017 dispute over a woman had escalated into threats, vandalism, and whispered promises of retribution. Suleiman, a man whose charm masked a ruthless streak, decided Pashtun's time was up. He hired hitmen Zamir Raja, 33, a volatile enforcer, and Anthony Ennis, 31, a loyal foot soldier, to execute a drive-by shooting. A message to anyone who crossed him. The plan was simple: kill Pashtun at his car wash in broad daylight to cement Suleiman's power. But plans and the chaos of vengeance rarely unfold as intended. At 3:02 p.m., the Audi slowed near the car wash. Raja, in the passenger seat, leaned out, a semi-automatic pistol in his grip. Enos, behind the wheel, kept the engine idling, his eyes scanning for witnesses. Pashtun, wiping down a sedan, was nowhere in sight. He'd stepped inside moments earlier, a twist of fate that saved his life. Raja, impatient, fired anyway. The guns cracked, shattering the afternoon. Bullets tore through the air, missing their target but finding another. Aya, standing 50 yards away, crumpled to the ground, a single shot piercing her chest. The Audi sped off, its tires screeching, leaving chaos in its wake. Aya's neighbor screamed, cradling her as blood pooled on the pavement. "Stay with me," the woman pleaded, but Aya's eyes fluttered, her breath fading. Paramedics arrived, their sirens a wail in the distance, but it was too late. Aya Hashem, an innocent bystander, was gone. Blackburn erupted in grief and outrage. King Street, usually quiet, became a shrine, its pavement lined with flowers, candles, and notes scrawled with heartbreak. Aya's family, shattered, gathered in their home, her mother, Fatima, weeping into Aya's textbooks, her father, Muhammad, staring blankly at the wall. "She was our star," he whispered to a reporter, his voice hollow. The community, diverse but united, mourned as one, mosques and churches holding joint vigils, their prayers a plea for answers. Lancashire Police, led by Detective Chief Inspector Pauline Stables, descended on the scene, their urgency fueled by the tragedy's weight. This was a targeted attack, Stables told the press, her jaw tight. But Aya was not the target. "We'll find who did this." The investigation moved with precision, a stark contrast to the crime's chaos. The car wash, now a crime scene, yielded shell casings, their markings traced to a 9mm pistol, a weapon favored in gang disputes. CCTV cameras, ubiquitous in Blackburn, became the police's lifeline. Footage from Wellington Road captured the Audi Q7, its license plate clear, its path tracked through the town's streets. The car, stolen weeks earlier, was found burned out in a nearby alley, its interior gutted but not enough to erase evidence. Fibers, a cigarette butt, and a smudged print pointed to multiple occupants, a conspiracy unfolding. Stables' team, combing through hours of video, spotted the Audi circling the car wash days before, its occupants scouting their target. The net was tightening, but the question lingered: who had pulled the trigger and why had Aya paid the price? The trail led to Fura Suleiman, a name whispered in Blackburn's underworld. Suleiman, born in 1983, had built a network trafficking cocaine and cannabis, his wealth flaunted in designer clothes and fast cars. His feud with Pasha and Kanda was no secret. Police had logged complaints of threats and property damage, but neither man cooperated, their code of silence a barrier. Suleiman, questioned at his flat, was cool. His alibi rehearsed. He'd been home, watching football, nowhere near King Street. His phone, however, told a different story. Cell tower data placed him near the car wash days before. His text to Raja and Ennis, cryptic but damning, "Do it clean," one read, sent hours before the shooting. Suleiman's charm faltered under scrutiny, his eyes darting as detectives pressed. Raja and Ennis, tracked through the Audi's movements, were arrested within days. Raja, a man with a rap sheet of assaults and robbery, was defiant, claiming he'd been at a gym, his tattoos glistening with sweat as he lied. Ennis, quieter but no less culpable, crumbled first, his loyalty to Suleiman fraying. "Wasn't supposed to be her," he muttered in interrogation, his head bowed. His confession cracked the case open, revealing a network of 8 men, each a cog in Suleiman's machine. Judy Chapman, 26, a courier who'd sourced the stolen car, Roger Allen, 44, who'd supplied the pistol, and 3 others, Suhail Suleiman, 21, Tyrone Wildman, 35, and Kane Hartley, 27, had roles in planning, scouting, and cleanup. Conspiracy, fueled by Suleiman's grudge, was a masterclass in organized crime, undone by one fatal mistake. CCTV was the prosecution's cornerstone. Cameras caught Raja buying gloves at a petrol station, Ennis testing the Audi's brakes, Chapman delivering burner phones. A neighbor's doorbell camera recorded the Audi's escape, Raja's face briefly visible, his gun still in hand. Forensic teams matched the cigarette butt in the car to Ennis. The print to Raja, the pistol recovered from a canal, bore traces of Raja's DNA, its bullets a match for the one that killed Aya. Suleiman's texts, recovered from a seized phone, were a blueprint of intent, his orders explicit. The evidence was a tapestry, each thread tying the men to the crime, their greed and arrogance, their downfall. The trial, held at Preston Crown Court in 2021, was a spectacle of grief and retribution. Aya's family filled the gallery, their silence louder than any testimony. Fatima, clutching Aya's scarf, testified about her daughter's dreams, her voice breaking as she described finding blood on her doorstep. Mohammed, stoic but shattered, spoke of Aya's kindness, her plans to defend the vulnerable. The prosecution, led by Gordon Cole, KC, painted Suleiman as a puppet master, his feud with Pashoon a spark that burned an innocent life. Aya Sham was not their target, Cole said, his voice steady, but their recklessness made her their victim. The defense, flailing, argued mistaken identity, claiming the hitman believed Pashoon was present, but the jury, after 10 days, saw through the lies. On December 17th, 2021, verdicts came down. Suleiman, convicted of murder and conspiracy, received 34 years, his empire reduced to a cell. Raja, the trigger man, got 30 years for murder, his bravado gone. Enos, guilty of manslaughter for his role as driver, was sentenced to 21 years, his confession earning a slight reprieve. Chapman, Allen, Suleiman, Wildman, and Hartley faced sentences from 15 to 27 years for conspiracy. Their roles varied, but their guilt shared. The courtroom, packed with Aya's loved ones, erupted in quiet sobs. Justice a cold comfort. Judge Mark Turner, his voice grave, called Aya's death a tragedy of unimaginable proportions, his words a nod to a life stolen. Blackburn mourned Aya long after the trial. King Street, where she fell, became a memorial, its walls painted with murals of her face, her smile eternal. Her university established a scholarship in her name, supporting law students who shared her passion. Her family, forever changed, channeled their grief into advocacy, speaking at schools about gun violence, their voices a plea for change. Pashoon Kanda, the intended target, vanished from Blackburn, his fate unknown, his survival a bitter irony. Suleiman, from prison, maintained his innocence, his appeals dismissed, his name a curse in the town he'd scarred. The car wash, once a bustling hub, closed, its windows boarded, a ghost of the day Aya died. Wellington Road grew quiet, its residents wary, their trust eroded. Aya's story, though, refuses to fade. In Blackburn's mosques, her name is spoken in prayers. In its schools, her legacy inspires. The question of why her, why then, lingers and ache without answer. The Audis screech, the gunshots crack, the pavement stain. They are etched in the town's memory, a reminder that vengeance unchecked claims more than its target. Aya Hasham, a star extinguished, shines on in the hearts of those who loved her. Her light, a challenge to the darkness that took her. Part 7, the murder of Gretchen Harrington, Pennsylvania, 1975. In the quiet suburb of Marple Township, Pennsylvania, where tree-lined streets and colonial homes fostered a sense of unshakable safety, August 15, 1975 began with the gentle hum of summer. For Gretchen Harrington, a 7-year-old born in 1968, it was a day of simple joys. The youngest of 4 daughters in a devout Presbyterian family, Gretchen was a wisp of a girl, blonde, blue-eyed, her laughter a melody in her family's modest home. Her father, David Harrington, was a pastor at Trinity Church, his sermons a cornerstone of the community. Her mother, Margaret, known as Zealot, nurtured their girls with warmth and faith. That morning, Gretchen set out for Vacation Bible School, a short walk through Broomall's familiar path, her heart light with the promise of songs and crafts. But Gretchen would never reach the church. her steps swallowed by a darkness that would haunt Marple Township for nearly half a century. Broomall in 1975 was a postcard of suburban America, a place where children roamed freely, their bicycles weaving through cul-de-sacs, their parents unworried by the specter of danger. The Harringtons, deeply rooted in their faith, were pillars of the community. Gretchen, nicknamed Gretchy by her sisters, was their baby. Her curiosity boundless, her trust absolute. She loved Sunday school, her small hands clutching crayon drawings of Noah's Ark, her voice joining hymns with earnest joy. On August 15, Vacation Bible School, a joint program between Trinity Church and a nearby Reformed Presbyterian church, was a highlight of her summer. The program ran mornings with Gretchen attending at Trinity, a half-mile from home, and sometimes visiting the other church for activities. That day, David dropped her off at Trinity around 9 a.m., watching her skip toward the church doors, her ponytail bouncing. "See you soon, Daddy," she called, her smile bright. It was the last time he'd see her alive. By 11 a.m., unease crept into the Harrington home. Gretchen hadn't returned. Though the program ended at 10:30, Zella, busy with her older daughters, assumed Gretchen was lingering with friends, her chatter delaying her walk home. But as noon approached, her absence grew heavy. Zella called Trinity Church, her voice steady but laced with worry. The coordinator confirmed Gretchen had left, heading toward the Reformed Church for a craft session. A call there yielded chilling news. Gretchen never arrived. Zella's heart sank, her hands trembling as she dialed David, who was at his study. "She's missing," she said, the words a knife. David rushed home, his pastoral calm shattered, his mind racing with dread. The Harringtons, joined by neighbors, scoured Broomall's streets, their voices calling Gretchen's name, their hope fraying with each empty path. Marple Township Police, a small force unaccustomed to major crimes, mobilized quickly. Chief Thomas Murray, a veteran with a fatherly demeanor, took charge, his officers fanning out to question residents. Gretchen's route was simple, through quiet streets, past familiar homes, no more than a 10-minute walk. Witnesses were scarce, but a neighbor recalled seeing Gretchen near Springfield Road, chatting with a man in a green car, his face obscured. Another reported a girl matching Gretchen's description entering a vehicle, the driver leaning toward her, his manner calm but deliberate. The descriptions were vague, male, middle-aged, possibly wearing glasses, but they painted a picture of an abduction, not a runaway. Murray, addressing reporters, his voice tight, said, "We're treating this as a kidnapping. Gretchen didn't just wander off." The community rallied, its faith tested but unbroken. Volunteers searched woods, fields, and creeks, their flashlights piercing the dusk, their prayers a shield against despair. Flyers with Gretchen's photo, her smile radiant, her eyes trusting, blanketed Delaware County pinned to every shop window and telephone pole. David and Zella, faces etched with anguish, appeared on local news, pleading for their daughter's return. "She's our little girl," David said, his voice breaking. "If you have her, let her go." The Harringtons' faith, their anchor, was tested as days turned to weeks, each sunrise a reminder of Gretchen's absence. Trinity Church became a hub, its pews filled with mourners, its pastor grappling with a loss no sermon could heal. On October 12, 1975, nearly 2 months later, a jogger in Eakin Park, a wooded area 5 miles from Broomall, stumbled upon a horrific sight. A small skeleton, partially covered by leaves, laid near a creek, its bones bleached by time. A pink dress, tattered but recognizable, clung to the remains. Dental records confirmed the worst. It was Gretchen. The autopsy, limited by decomposition, revealed a fractured skull, likely from a single blow. The cause of death, blunt force trauma. No evidence of sexual assault was found, but the scene suggested a struggle. Her body discarded like refuse. The park, a place of picnics and play, became a graveyard, its silence a scream of violation. Zella, informed by police, collapsed, her cries echoing through the Harrington home. David, clutching his Bible, whispered, "God, why her?" The investigation, now a murder case, intensified. Eakin Park yielded little. A few fibers, a shoe print too degraded to cast. But the green car remained a focal point. Detectives canvassed Broomall, seeking anyone matching the vague descriptions. Suspicion fell on local men with minor records, their alibis scrutinized, their homes searched. A neighbor, a loner with a history of loitering near schools, drew attention, but his car was blue, his timeline solid. Another lead pointed to a drifter seen in the area, his green sedan a match, but he'd left town weeks earlier, his whereabouts unknown. The police, under pressure from a grieving community, chased every tip, their resources stretched thin. Murray, haunted by Gretchen's face, vowed, "We'll find him, no matter how long it takes." Years passed, and the case grew cold. Marple Township changed, its innocence eroded, parents now walking their children to school, their trust fractured. The Harringtons, anchored by faith, raised their surviving daughters. Susan, Janelle, and Kristen, with love but an undercurrent of fear. David continued preaching, his sermons tinged with sorrow, while Zella poured her grief into advocacy, speaking at safety seminars, her voice a plea for vigilance. Gretchen's room remained untouched, her dolls on the shelf, her drawings pinned to the wall, a shrine to a life stolen. Anniversaries of her disappearance, marked by candlelit vigils, kept her memory alive, but answers remained elusive, the green car a ghost in the investigation's fog. Forensic science in 1975 was rudimentary. DNA analysis a distant dream, fingerprints useless without a suspect. The case file, thick with dead ends, gathered dust in Marple's evidence room. Detectives retired, their successors inheriting a mystery that gnawed at the township's soul. Gretchen's sisters grew up, their childhood shadowed by loss, their questions unanswered. Susan, the closest to Gretchen in age, later wrote, "I see her in every blonde girl, hear her in every laugh." The community, though scarred, held fast to hope, believing the killer would one day betray himself, his secret too heavy to bear. In 2018, a flicker of hope emerged. Delaware County's cold case unit, bolstered by new technology, reopened Gretchen's file. Advances in DNA, though limited by the case's age, offered possibilities. The fibers from Eakin Park preserved in evidence were retested, but degradation rendered them useless. The focus shifted to witness statements, now decades old. Their details faded, but a retired officer reviewing the file noted a name that had surfaced in 1975 but was dismissed. David Zanstra, a 38-year-old pastor at the Reformed Presbyterian Church where Gretchen was headed that day. Zanstra, a married father, had been questioned briefly, his role as a trusted figure overshadowing suspicion. His green station wagon, mentioned by a neighbor, was never searched. His alibi? Preparing a sermon, unverified. The breakthrough came in 2021, not from science, but from a woman's courage. Jane, a pseudonym for a now-adult woman, contacted police, her voice trembling but resolute. In the 1970s, she'd been a child in Zanstra's congregation, a friend of his daughter. Jane revealed a chilling secret. At age 10, Zanstra had molested her, his abuse hidden behind his pastoral authority. She'd stayed silent, fearing disbelief. But Gretchen's case, resurfacing in news, stirred her resolve. Jane's story triggered a cascade of revelations. Other women, now in their 50s, came forward, describing Zandra's predatory behavior, groping, inappropriate touches, all cloaked in his role as a spiritual guide. One recalled seeing Zandra near Springfield Road that August morning, his car idling, his gaze fixed on passing children. Detectives, led by Detective Brad Ross, tracked Zanstra to Marietta, Georgia, where he'd lived since the 1990s, pastoring small churches, his past buried. Now 83, frail but sharp, Zanstra lived quietly, his wife unaware of the shadows he carried. On July 17, 2023, Ross confronted him. The interrogation room, a stark contrast to Zanstra's former pulpits. Faced with Jane's testimony and witness accounts, Zanstra's composure cracked. "I did it," he said, his voice a whisper. He described luring Gretchen into his car, offering to drive her to Bible school. When she resisted, he panicked, striking her with a fist, the blow fatal. He drove to Eakin Park, hiding her body under leaves, his prayers a hollow mask for his guilt. "I've lived with it every day," he said, tears falling, not for Gretchen, but for himself. Zanstra was charged with murder, kidnapping, and related offenses, his bail denied, his trial pending as of 2025. Extradited to Pennsylvania, he sits in Delaware County Prison, his pastoral robes replaced by a jumpsuit, his legacy a stain. The Harringtons, now elderly, faced the news with a mix of relief and anguish. David, still preaching at 80, said, God's justice is slow but sure. Zella, her health frail, clutched Gretchen's photo, whispering, "We never stopped loving you." Susan, speaking for her sisters, told reporters, "Gretchen's with us, always. This doesn't bring her back, but it honors her." Marple Township, stirred by the arrest, grappled with its past. Trinity Church held a memorial, its pews filled, Gretchen's hymns sung once more. The Reformed Church, long closed, became a symbol of betrayal, its pastor a wolf in shepherd's clothing. Zanstra's confession raised questions. Were there other victims, other graves? Police reopened cold cases, his name a thread in unsolved files, but no evidence has emerged. Broomall, though changed, holds Gretchen's memory dear, her face on faded flyers. Her story, a cautionary tale of trust misplaced. Eakin Park, where Gretchen was found, is quiet now. Its paths walked by joggers, its creek a murmur of time. The Harrington home, sold years ago, stands as it did. Its walls, silent witnesses to a family's pain. Gretchen's sisters, raising their own children, teach them vigilance. Their love for Gretchen, a light in the dark. In Marple Township, where the trees still cast long shadows, Gretchen Harrington's story is a whisper in the leaves. A reminder that evil can hide behind a smile, a prayer, a lie, and that justice, though delayed, can find its way. Part 8. The Deshpande Family Murders. Indore, India, 2011. In the bustling city of Indore, Madhya Pradesh, where vibrant markets hum with life and modern flats rise alongside ancient temples, August 3, 2011 unfolded under a monsoon sky heavy with promise. For the Deshpande family, it was a day of quiet routine in their upscale apartment in Nayanagar. Megha Deshpande, 35, was a devoted wife and mother, her warmth the heartbeat of their home. Her daughter, Ashlesha, 14, was a bright student with dreams of becoming a doctor, her laughter a melody in the family's life. Megha's mother, Rohini, 60, lived with them, her wisdom a steady presence. The Deshpandes, respected in their community, were known for their generosity, their flat often filled with the aroma of Rohini's cooking and the chatter of neighbors. But that night, their sanctuary would become a slaughterhouse, their lives extinguished in a crime driven by greed and betrayal that would shock Indore to its core. Indore, in 2011, was a city on the rise, its blend of tradition and ambition drawing families like the Deshpandes to its leafy suburbs. Nayanagar, a quiet enclave of professionals, was a place where children played in courtyards. Indore stayed open, trust woven into the fabric of daily life. Megha, a homemaker, had built a life of love with her husband, Sanjay, a bank manager who traveled often for work. Ashleha, their only child, was their pride, her science projects winning awards, her smile a mirror of her mother's. Rohini, widowed but vibrant, had moved in after her husband's death, her stories of old Indore a bedtime ritual for Ashleha. On August 3, Sanjay was away, leaving the three women alone, their evening planned around a simple dinner and a favorite TV show. Megha, expecting a visit from a family friend, left the door unlocked, a decision that would prove fatal. Neha Vyas, 28, was that friend, or so Megha believed. A distant relative through marriage, Neha was a frequent visitor, her easy smile and gifts of sweet, masking a heart consumed by envy. Neha, born in 1983, had grown up in Indore's working-class fringes, her life a stark contrast to the Deshpandes' comfort. Married to a struggling shopkeeper, she scraped by, her dreams of wealth fueled by Bollywood films and the glittering lives of Nayagar's elite. Megha, kind but naive, had welcomed Neha into their circle, sharing meals and confidences, unaware that Neha coveted their prosperity, particularly the jewelry Rohini wore. Gold bangles and diamond necklaces passed down through generations. Neha's visits, once innocent, had become reconnaissance, her eyes cataloging the Deshpandes' valuables, her mind weaving a plan. Neha's accomplice was Rahul Chaudhary, 30, her lover and a man whose charm hid a violent streak. Rahul, a mechanic with a history of petty theft, shared Neha's hunger for a better life, his resentment of the wealthy, a spark that Neha fanned. Together they plotted a robbery, targeting the Deshpandes for their jewelry, estimated at 15 lakh rupees, about $30,000, 0 cents, in 2011. To execute the plan, they enlisted Manoj Solanki, 25, a drifter Rahul knew from Indore's underbelly, his loyalty bought with promises of cash. The trio's scheme was simple. Neha would gain entry, posing as a friend, while Rahul and Manoj subdued the family, stealing the jewelry and fleeing before Sanjay returned. But greed, unchecked, has a way of spiraling, and their plan, born of calculation, would end in blood. On the evening of August 3, Neha knocked on the Deshpande's door, her smile practice, a box of ladus in hand. Megha, expecting her, welcomed her inside, the aroma of dal simmering in the kitchen. Ashlesha, sprawled on the sofa with a biology textbook, waved shyly, while Rohini, knitting in her armchair, offered tea. The scene was domestic, serene, a snapshot of trust. Neha, chatting about her cousin's wedding, waited for her signal. Around 8 p.m., as the monsoon rain began to fall, Rahul and Manoj slipped through the apartment's back entrance, left ajar by Neha. They wore masks, their knives glinting, their hearts pounding with adrenaline. Megha, sensing movement, turned, her smile fading as Rahul lunged. The attack was swift and brutal. Rahul grabbed Megha, his knife at her throat, demanding the jewelry. Rohini, rising to protect her daughter, was struck by Manoj, her head slamming against the wall, blood streaking her sari. Ashlesha screamed, her textbook falling. But Neha, her facade gone, pinned the girl down, her voice cold. "Shut up, or you're next." The family, bound with ropes from a hardware store, pleaded for mercy, their voices drowned by the rain's drumbeat. Megha, sobbing, pointed to a safe in the bedroom, hoping compliance would save them. But Rahul, enraged by Rohini's defiance, stabbed her repeatedly, her body slumping, her eyes wide with betrayal. Megha, witnessing her mother's death, fought back, clawing at Rahul, but his knife found her chest, her heart pierced. Ashlesha, the last to fall, was strangled by Manoj, her small frame no match for his strength. Within minutes, the Deshpande home, once alive with love, was a tomb, its walls stained with the blood of 3 generations. The killers, their hands trembling, ransacked the flat. They pried open the safe, stuffing gold bangles, necklaces, and earrings into a duffel bag. Neha, her composure fraying, grabbed Megha's purse, its cash bonus. They fled through the back door, the rain washing away their footprints, the bag heavy with their prize. The apartment, left in disarray, was silent, save for the TV's murmur, its soap opera playing to no one. Anjay, returning the next morning, found the door ajar, the air thick with death. His screams alerted neighbors, their gasps echoing as police swarmed Naige Nagar, their sirens a wail in the dawn. Inner police, led by Superintendent Yagesh Sharma, faced a crime unprecedented in the city's history. The scene was horrific. Megha, Rohini, and Ashlesha, bound and bloodied, their faces frozen in terror. The safe empty, pointed in robbery, but the savagery suggested something deeper. A rage that transcended theft. Sharma, a veteran with a reputation for tenacity, vowed justice, his team combing the flat for clues. Fingerprints, smudged but viable, dotted the safe in ropes. Blood spatter, analyzed by forensics, showed multiple attackers, their movements chaotic. A neighbor reported seeing a woman resembling Neha leaving the building, her pace hurried, a man at her side. The description, though vague, was a thread in a city of millions. The investigation gained traction when a pawn shop owner 20 miles away contacted police. On August 5, a woman had sold gold bangles matching the Deshpande's description, her nervousness raising suspicion. CCTV from the shop captured Neha, her face clear, the jewelry unmistakable. Sharma's team, tracing her address, raided her home, finding a bloodstained sari hidden in the cupboard, its fibers matching those at the scene. Neha, arrested on August 7th, crumbled under questioning, her tears a performance that fooled no one. "I didn't mean for this," she sobbed, confessing to the robbery but blaming Rahul for the murders. Her betrayal led to Rahul's arrest in a slum hideout, his knife still bearing traces of Megha's blood. Manoj, tracked to a bus station, was caught fleeing to Mumbai, his duffel bag holding Ashlesha's earrings, a damning trophy. The trio's interrogations revealed a conspiracy rooted in envy. Neha, the architect, had spent months gaining Megha's trust, her visits a slow poison. Rahul, driven by greed and a need to dominate, had escalated the plan, his knife a tool of control. Manoj, a follower, had obeyed, his conscience dulled by promises of wealth. In their confessions, corroborated by evidence, painted a chilling picture. The robbery was meant to be clean, but Rohini's resistance sparked Rahul's fury. The murders a cascade of panic and rage. The jewelry, sold or hidden, was recovered in parts, its value a fraction of the lives it cost. Indore, a city proud of its harmony, reeled. Naye Nagar's streets, once vibrant, grew quiet, its residents locking doors, their faith in neighbors shaken. The Deshpandi's flat, sealed as a crime scene, became a ghost, its windows dark, its laughter silenced. Sanjay, broken by loss, left Indore, his grief too heavy for the city that held his family's memory. Ashleisha's school held a memorial, her classmates planting a tree in her honor, its leaves a symbol of her unfulfilled dreams. Megha's friends, gathering at a temple, prayed for her soul, their incense curling toward a sky that offered no answers. Rohini's knitting, left unfinished, was donated to a charity, her kindness enduring beyond her death. The trial, held at Indore's district court in 2013, was a reckoning. Neha, Rahul, and Manoj, charged with murder, robbery, and conspiracy, faced a packed courtroom, Sanjay's absence a wound felt by all. The prosecution, led by advocate Rakesh Gupta, presented a case airtight with evidence. Fingerprints, blood, CCTV, and confessions. Gupta, his voice steady, described the crime's brutality, holding up Ashleisha's earrings, their glint a silent accusation. This was not just theft, he said. This was annihilation. The defense, grasping, argued diminished responsibility, claiming the murders were unplanned, but the jury, after 5 days, saw no mercy. On June 12, 2013, all three were convicted, sentenced to death, a rare penalty in India reflecting the crime's heinousness. Neha's sobs, Rahul's defiance, and Manoj's silence filled the room, their fates. The Deshpande murders left scars on Indore. Appeals still pending as of 2025 keep the case alive, the trio in separate prisons, their executions delayed by legal wrangling. Nagar, though healing, carries the weight of that night. Its residents wary of strangers, their trusted casualty. A community center named for Ashleisha supports girls' education, a tribute to her dreams. Megha's recipes, shared by friends, live on in kitchens, her love a quiet legacy. Rohini's stories, retold by neighbors, keep her spirit near, her wisdom a guide. In Indore, where the monsoon still falls, the Deshpande family story is a whisper in the rain, a warning that greed can turn a friend into a foe, a home into a grave, and a city into a mourner. Part 9, The Murder of Karina Vetrano, Queens, New York, 2016. In the vibrant borough of Queens, New York, where tree-lined streets meet the pulse of urban life, August 2, 2016 dawned with the heavy heat of summer. For Karina Vetrano, a 30-year-old born in 1986, it was a day to embrace her routine, a moment of freedom in a life defined by passion and purpose. Karina, with her dark hair and fierce spirit, was a force. A speech therapist by day, a fitness enthusiast by choice, her evenings spent jogging through the paths of Spring Creek Park. Raised in Howard Beach, a tight-knit Italian-American enclave, she was the heart of her family, her laughter a melody in their modest home. That afternoon, Karina laced up her running shoes, kissed her parents, Kathy and Phil, goodbye, and headed to the park, her music pulsing through earbuds. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, Karina's run would end in horror, her life stolen in a crime that would grip New York and expose the fragility of safety in a familiar place. Howard Beach in 2016 was a neighborhood of pride and tradition, its residents bound by family and faith. Spring Creek Park, a marshy expanse near Jamaica Bay, was both a refuge and a relic. Its trails winding through tall grasses, its solitude a draw for runners like Karina. She knew the park well, its paths her sanctuary, though her father, a retired firefighter, often warned her to avoid it alone. Phil, scarred by a career of facing danger, had joined her on runs, his presence a shield. But on August 2, he was nursing a back injury, his unease palpable as Karina insisted on going solo. "I'll be fine, Dad," she said, her smile tucked at herself. "It's my park." She left at 5 p.m., her phone tucked in her waistband, her confidence a shield against the unknown. It was a decision that would haunt her family forever. By 7 p.m., worry crept into the Vetrano home. Karina, disciplined and punctual, always texted when she finished her run. Kathy, a teacher with a mother's intuition, sensed something wrong, her fingers dialing Karina's number. the unanswered rings of growing dread. Phil, his pain forgotten, grabbed his phone, tracking Karina's location via an app. The signal pinged in Spring Creek Park, unmoving, a silent alarm. He called 911, his voice steady but fraying, and drove to the park, his heart pounding. Near a secluded trail, he found her running shoes, one discarded in the grass, the other tangled in weeds. Nearby, a patch of flattened reeds suggested a struggle, the earth disturbed. Phil's shouts, raw with panic, drew police, their flashlights cutting through the dusk. Karina Vetrano, vibrant and unstoppable, was missing. The search was immediate, desperate. NYPD officers, joined by Phil's firefighter colleagues, combed the park, their boots sinking in marshy soil, their voices calling Karina's name. Helicopters buzzed overhead, their spotlights piercing the night, while K-9 units sniffed for traces of life. Around 11 p.m., a detective's beam caught a glint in the reeds. A body, partially hidden, its stillness a scream. It was Karina, her clothes torn, her face bruised, her neck marked by strangulation. The scene was brutal. Evidence of sexual assault deepened the violation, her body battered by a savage struggle. Kathy, kept at the park's edge, collapsed when told, her wail echoing across the marsh. Phil, a man who'd faced infernos, broke, his fists clenched, his daughter's light extinguished. Queens reeled, its streets alive with grief and fear. Howard Beach, a community of stoics, mourned openly, its churches packed, its sidewalks lined with candles. Karina's face, smiling, fierce, dominated newsstands, her story a wound in New York's heart. NYPD's 106 precinct, led by Captain John Alberts, launched a manhunt, their urgency fueled by the crime's audacity. This was no random act, Alberts told reporters, his jaw. Someone targeted Karina, and will find them. The crime scene, a tangle of reeds and mud, yielded clues. DNA under Karina's fingernails, a mixture of her blood and her attackers, a rare find in outdoor cases. A shoe print, size 10, pressed into the soil, offered a lead, as did a strand of hair, dark and coarse, caught in her clothing. The park, once a haven, was now a puzzle, its secrets buried in the grass. The investigation was exhaustive, the pressure immense. Spring Creek Park, isolated but near Belt Parkway, suggested a local killer, someone familiar with its trails. Detectives canvassed Howard Beach, knocking on doors, their questions met with shaken heads. Surveillance cameras sparse in the park captured nothing. But a gas station nearby showed a man, hooded and vague, walking toward the trails hours before. His face was obscured, his gait unremarkable, but his presence lingered, a shadow in the footage. Flyers with Karina's photo, paired with a $250,000 0 reward, flooded Queens, tips pouring in, sightings, suspicions, dead ends. Phil, relentless, joined searches. His firefighter's grit turned to a father's mission. "I'll find who did this," he vowed, his eyes hollow but burning. Suspicion initially fell on Karina's circle. Her ex-boyfriend, a chef named Matt, was questioned. His breakup with Karina, amicable but recent. His alibi, working a dinner shift, was ironclad, backed by co-workers and receipts. Friends, co-workers, even park regulars faced scrutiny, their DNA swabbed, their stories probed. None matched the profile under Karina's nails, a mix of male DNA with unique markers. The investigation widened, pulling in known offenders from Queens and Brooklyn, their records combed for similar crimes. A local sex offender living blocks away drew focus, but his DNA cleared him, his limp inconsistent with the attacker's agility. The case, high profile and urgent, frustrated detectives, their leads evaporating in the summer heat. Forensic science became the beacon. The DNA, preserved in a lab, was run through CODIS, the national database, but no match emerged. Familial DNA searches, limited by New York's laws, offered hope, but required a suspect pool. The hair, analyzed for mitochondrial DNA, suggested African ancestry, narrowing the focus but not enough in a city of millions. The shoe print, linked to a common Nike sneaker, was a dead end, sold in countless stores. Detectives, led by Lieutenant John Russo, shifted to behavioral profiling. Hypothesizing a loner, opportunistic but controlled, his attack a mix of impulse and calculation. Russo, a veteran of Queens' grittiest cases, told his team, "He's here, hiding in plain sight. We just need his name. Months passed, the case growing cold. Howard Beach scarred, changed. Runners avoided Spring Creek Park, parents clung to their daughters. The neighborhood's trust eroded. Karina's family, anchored by faith, channeled grief into action. Kathy organized safety workshops, her voice steady but tear-streaked. Phil, a lion in pain, spoke at vigils, his firefighter's badge pinned to his chest, Karina's photo in his hand. She fought, he said, his voice raw. She's still fighting through us. Their home, once filled with Karina's energy, was a shrine. Her running medals on the wall, her journal unopened, its pages a map of her dreams. Anniversaries of her death, marked by marathons in her name, kept her spirit alive. But answers remained elusive. The killer a ghost in Queens streets? In February 2017, a break came from an unlikely source. Lieutenant Robert Boyce, NYPD's chief of detectives, revisited a tip from a woman reporting a suspicious man in Spring Creek Park weeks before Karina's murder. She'd seen him loitering, his demeanor off, his eyes tracking joggers. Her description, tall, black, early 20s, wearing a hoodie, matched the gas station footage. Boyce, cross-referencing her tip with patrol logs, found a report from May 2016. An officer had stopped a man in the park for trespassing, noting his name, Chanel Lewis, a 20-year-old from East New York. Lewis, unemployed with a history of mental health issues, had no criminal record, but his proximity to the park and vague explanation, just walking, raised flags. Boyce ordered a tail, his gut screaming this was their man. On February 4th, 2017, detectives approached Lewis at his mother's apartment in Brooklyn. Lewis, lanky and soft-spoken, seemed nervous, his hands fidgeting. He agreed to a DNA swab, his eyes avoiding theirs. The sample, rushed to the lab, matched the DNA under Karina's nails. The odds of a random hit, 1 in a trillion. Lewis was arrested, charged with murder and sexual assault. His face splashed across tabloids. Queen's collective breath held. In interrogation, he was erratic, denying involvement, then admitting he'd been in the park, claiming he'd seen a woman but didn't touch her. His contradictions piled up, his story crumbling under Russo's questions. A search of his home found Nikes matching the shoe print, their soles worn but damning. Lewis's background emerged, a puzzle of isolation and instability. Born in 1996, he'd grown up in East New York, a rough pocket of Brooklyn. His mother, a single parent, struggling to manage his schizophrenia diagnosis. High school records showed behavioral issues, outbursts, truancy, but no violence. Neighbors described him as quiet, a loner who wandered parks, his thoughts a mystery. Psych evaluations conducted post-arrest painted a man detached from reality, his impulses unchecked. Prosecutors theorized he'd seen Karina running, her solitude an opportunity. His attack, a burst of rage and desire. The absence of prior crimes made him invisible, a predator who'd slipped through society's cracks. The trial, held at Queens Supreme Court in 2018, was a storm of emotion and controversy. Karina's family filled the gallery, Kathy clutching Phil's hand, their eyes fixed on Lewis. The prosecution, led by ADA Brad Leventhal, presented a case anchored by DNA, the shoe print, and Lewis's partial confession. Taped during a second interrogation, "I was angry," Lewis had said, his voice flat. "He was there, and I just did it," Leventhal described the attack's brutality. Karina, ambushing the reeds, fought fiercely, her nails clawing Lewis, her strength no match for his. The defense, led by Jenny Chung, argued coercion, claiming Lewis' confession was forced, his mental state ignored. Karina challenged the DNA, suggesting contamination, and raised racial bias, noting Lewis's blackness in a predominantly white Howard Beach. The jury, after weeks of testimony, deadlocked, a mistrial declared, the Vetrano's hope shattered. Queens, divided, erupted in debate, protests outside the courthouse, some decrying Lewis's arrest as profiling, others demanding justice for Karina, turned Howard Beach into a battleground. Phil, speaking to reporters, his voice hoarse, said, "My daughter deserves better than this." The retrial in 2019 was a crucible. Leventhal doubled down, introducing new evidence, a park ranger's testimony of seeing Lewis near the trails, his hoodie matching the gas station clip. Undeterred, called psychologists to testify to Lewis's schizophrenia, arguing diminished capacity. The jury this time deliberated for a day, On April 1, 2019, they found Lewis guilty of murder and sexual assault. Judge Michael Alois, his voice grave, sentenced him to life without parole. The courtroom silent, save for Kathy's sobs. Lewis's conviction was a victory, but it left scars. Appeals, ongoing as of 2025, cite procedural errors, keeping the case alive. Lewis in a cell at Sing Sing, his silence a wall. Karina's family, though relieved, found no peace. Kathy, speaking at a memorial run, said, "Karina's gone, but her fight lives in us." Phil, aged by grief, patrols Spring Creek Park, a guardian of his daughter's memory. Howard Beach, forever changed, shuns the park, its trails overgrown, its solitude a warning. The question of motive, why Lewis, why Karina, haunts Queens, an answer buried in a mind unraveling. Karina's running shoes, preserved in evidence, are a symbol of her spirit, her fight, her loss. In Howard Beach, Karina's legacy endures. A gym named for her trains young women in self-defense. Her strength a beacon, her blog filled with poetry and fitness tips is a digital shrine. Its words read by thousands. Spring Creek Park, where she fell, is quiet now. Its reeds whispering of a woman who ran, who fought, who loved. In Queens, where the city's pulse never fades, Karina Vetrano's story is a shadow in the streets. A reminder that safety is fleeting, that monsters walk among us, and that a daughter's light, though extinguished, burns on in those who carry her name. Part 10, The Murders of Nancy Logerquist and Bertha Scott, Missoula, Montana, 1990. In the serene embrace of Missoula, Montana, where the Clark Fork River winds through pine-covered hills and the air carries the crisp promise of the Rockies, September 1990 unfolded with the gentle rhythm of autumn. For the residents of Rosewood Manor, a modest care home tucked in the city's heart, life was a quiet tapestry of routine and camaraderie. Among them were Nancy Logerquist, 81, and Bertha Scott, 78, two women whose lives had woven through decades of joy and loss. Nancy, a retired school teacher with a quick wit, filled her days with crossword puzzles and stories of her classroom years. Bertha, a former librarian, her hands arthritic but her mind sharp, cherished her garden and the letters she penned to her grandchildren. On September 12 and October 3, 1990, their sanctuary would become a slaughterhouse, their lives extinguished in a pair of crimes that would baffle Missoula and leave a mystery unsolved to this day. Missoula in 1990 was a city of 40,000, a blend of rugged beauty and small-town warmth. Rosewood Manor, a single-story building with ivy-clad walls, housed elderly residents who valued independence but needed care. Nancy and Bertha, roommates by choice, were fixtures in the home, their laughter a comfort to staff, their stories a bridge to the past. Nancy, born in 1909, had taught generations of Missoula's children, her strict but kind demeanor legendary. Widowed, childless, she treated her fellow residents like family, her room filled with photos of former students. Bertha, born in 1912, had curated Missoula's library, her love of books matched only by her green thumb. A mother of two, she'd outlived her husband, her days spent tending roses outside her window. Both women, frail but spirited, trusted Rosewood's safety, its locked doors a shield against the world. On September 12, 1990, the night was cool, the sky a canvas of stars. Nancy, in her cotton nightgown, settled into bed, a mystery novel on her nightstand. Bertha, after watering her roses, joined her, their room softly lit by a lamp. The care home, quiet after 10 p.m., hummed with the snores of sleeping residents. Around midnight, a shadow moved outside. A window screen, sliced with precision, fell silently to the grass. The intruder, cloaked in darkness, slipped into Nancy and Bertha's room, his presence undetected by the night nurse dozing at her station. What followed was a horror beyond imagining. Nancy was raped and strangled, her body left sprawled on her bed, her eyes wide with terror. Bertha, waking to the struggle, fought back, her nails clawing at her attacker, but she too was overpowered. Raped and strangled, her body crumpled on the floor. The killer fled as he'd come, leaving no trace but devastation. The crime wasn't discovered until morning. A nurse, making her rounds, entered the room, her scream shattering the dawn. Nancy and Bertha, their bodies cold, lay in a scene of unthinkable violation. The staff, shaken, called Missoula police, their voices trembling. Detective Sergeant Bob Hayes, a grizzled veteran, arrived, his face paling at the sight. The room, once a haven, was a crime scene. Bedsheets tangled, the lamp overturned, the cut screen a silent witness. Hayes, addressing his team, his voice low, said this wasn't random. Someone knew this place, these women. The care home, locked from the inside, suggested an intruder with skill, his entry meticulous, his exit invisible. Missoula, a city unaccustomed to such brutality, reeled, its residents locking windows, their trust in safety shattered. The investigation was immediate, exhaustive. The cut screen, a hallmark of the crime, was dusted for prints, but none were found, the intruder likely gloved. Semen recovered from both victims offered hope for DNA, but 1990s technology was limited, the samples preserved for a future that might unlock them. Blood under Bertha's nails, a sign of her fight, was too degraded to profile. The window, facing a quiet alley, showed no footprints. The ground, hardened by drought. Hayes' team canvassed Rosewood Manor, questioning staff and residents, their answers clouded by shock. A night aide recalled a man loitering near the home days earlier, his face obscured by a cap, but his description, medium build, dark clothing, was maddeningly vague. The alley, a dead end, offered no cameras, no witnesses, only whispers of a figure in the night. 3 weeks later, on October 3rd, the nightmare repeated. Another resident, 84-year-old Clara Jensen, was found dead in her room, raped and strangled, her window screen sliced in the same precise manner. The similarities were undeniable. The same entry, the same brutality, the same absence of clues. Hayes, now certain of a serial predator, linked the cases, dubbing the killer the Night Prowler. Clara's murder in a different wing suggested the intruder knew Rosewood's layout, his confidence chilling. The semen, again preserved, matched the earlier samples, confirming one killer, his pattern a taunt to police. Missoula, gripped by fear, demanded answers, its newspapers screaming headlines, its residents arming themselves, their sleep haunted by the thought of a shadow at their windows. Hayes' investigation widened, pulling in every angle. Rosewood's staff faced scrutiny. Could an employee with access and knowledge be the culprit? A janitor with a minor theft record drew suspicion, his late shifts aligning with the murders, but his DNA, swabbed voluntarily, didn't match, his alibi solid. Former residents' families, disgruntled by care disputes, were questioned, their motives probed, but none fit the profile. Prowler's methods, silent entry, elderly victims, sexual violence, suggested a predator with experience possibly linked to similar crimes. Hayes contacted the FBI, their behavioral science unit, profiling the killer as a local 20S to 40S, socially isolated with a history of voyeurism or assault. The profile, though insightful, was broad. Missoula's population too vast to narrow without a break. The community, desperate, rallied. Rosewood Manor, now a fortress, installed alarms and bars, its residents fearful, their nights sleepless. Nancy and Bertha's families, devastated, leaned on each other. Nancy's nephew Tom, a teacher like her, spoke at her funeral, his voice breaking. She deserved peace. Not this. Bertha's daughter Ellen clung to her mother's gardening gloves, planting roses in her memory, her tears watering the soil. Vigils filled Missoula's churches, their candles a plea for justice. Flyers offering a $50,000 zero-cent reward plastered the city, tips flooding in, sightings of a man near care homes, reports of slashed screens. But each lead fizzled, the prowler, a phantom in the investigation's grasp. Forensic hopes rested on the semen, preserved in evidence lockers, but DNA technology lagged, required a suspect for comparison. The cut screens made with a sharp blade suggested a tool, like a box cutter, common in Missoula's hardware stores. A lead that went nowhere. The prowler's knowledge of Rosewood, its unlocked windows, its quiet hours, pointed to a local, perhaps a former worker or neighbor. Hayes interviewed delivery drivers, maintenance men, even relatives. Their alibis checked, their lives dissected. A groundskeeper fired for drinking drew focus. His anger at Rosewood documented, but his DNA cleared him. His limp inconsistent with the killer's agility. The investigation, stretched across months, then years, grew cold, its file a tomb of unanswered questions. Missoula changed, its innocence buried with Nancy, Bertha, and Clara. Care homes fortified, their residents guarded, their trust and safety gone. The Logerquist and Scott families, bound by shared loss, held annual memorials, their roses laid at Rosewood's gate, their prayers a call for answers. Ellen, speaking in 2000, said, "Mom's roses still bloom, but her killer walks free." Tom, aging but resolute, funded reward increases, his hope fading but unextinguished. The police, under new leadership, kept the case alive, their cold case unit revisiting it with each forensic advance. In 2005, the DNA was retested, yielding a partial profile, but CODIS, the national database, found no match. The Prowler's identity, a void. In 2015, a new lead emerged. A woman cleaning her late father's attic found a box of tools, including a box cutter with a worn blade, its edge matching the screen cuts. Her father, a handyman who'd worked near Rosewood in 1990, had died in 2008. His life unremarkable, but his temper known. She contacted police, her voice trembling, fearing his guilt. Detectives, led by Detective Lisa Mills, exhumed his body for DNA, a desperate bid for closure. But the sample, degraded by time, was inconclusive. The cutter, too common to confirm the lead, though promising, collapsed. Another shadow in a case of ghosts. Mills, reviewing Hayes' notes, told reporters, "He's out there, or he's dead. Either way, we won't stop." The night prowler's shadow lingers, his crimes a wound in Missoula's soul. In 2020, genetic genealogy, a tool cracking cold cases, was tried. The DNA submitted to labs tracing ancestry, but the sample, too faint, yielded no family tree, Montana's laws limiting such searches. Suspects, long dead or vanished, haunt the file. A drifter seen in 1990, a nurse with a hidden assault record, a neighbor removed days after Clara's death. Each was investigated, each cleared or untraceable, their names a litany of might-have-beens. Rosewood Manor, sold and renamed, stands quiet, its ivy thicker, its windows barred, its past a whisper among staff. Nancy and Bertha's memory endures in Missoula. A library corner named for Bertha holds her favorite books. Its roses planted by Ellen, now a grandmother. Nancy's crossword club, started by Tom, meets monthly, her wit a legacy in their laughter. The care home's garden, where Bertha's roses bloom, is a memorial. Its plaque reading, "For Nancy and Bertha, forever loved." Their families, though aged, keep the reward alive, their hope a flicker in the dark. The question of the prowler's fate, alive, dead, or hiding, gnaws at Missoula, an answer buried in time. In the city's hills, where the river flows, Nancy Logerquist and Bertha Scott's story is a whisper in the pines, a reminder that evil can strike the vulnerable, that safety is a lie, and that some truths remain locked in the shadow. Part 11, The Death of Kaysera Stops Pretty Places, Hardin, Montana, 2019. In the windswept plains of Hardin, Montana, where the Bighorn River cuts through a landscape of sagebrush and resilience, August 2019 unfolded with the quiet intensity of late summer. For Kaysera Stops Pretty Places, an 18-year-old born in 2001, it was a time of transition, her life a bridge between her Crow and Northern Cheyenne heritage and a future she was still shaping. Kaysera, with her dark hair and fierce spirit, was a force, a high school graduate, an artist, and an advocate who'd spoken out against police brutality in her community. Living with her grandmother, Grace Bulltail, in Hardin, she balanced dreams of college with the weight of her activism. On August 24, 2019, Kaysera left home for a night out, her laughter trailing behind her, but she would never return. Her death a mystery shrouded in suspicion, injustice, and a community's cry for answers that haunts Hardin to this day. Hardin, a town of 3,500 on the edge of the Crow Reservation, was a place of contrasts, proud native traditions clashing with systemic challenges, its streets a mix of hope and hardship. Kaysera, a descendant of warriors, carried her heritage with pride, her beadwork a testament to her skill, her voice a weapon against the marginalization of indigenous women. She'd protested at rallies, her signs demanding justice for missing and murdered indigenous women. MMIW, a crisis plaguing Montana. Her grandmother, a respected elder, described her as a spark, her energy lighting up their small home. On August 24, Kaysera told Grace she was meeting friends, possibly at a party or the county fair, her phone buzzing with plans. "I'll be back by morning," she said, hugging Grace, her smile bright. There was a promise she couldn't keep. By August 25th, Grace's worry grew. Kaysera, though independent, always checked in, her texts a lifeline. Grace called her phone. The rings unanswered, the voicemail a hollow echo. She contacted Kaysera's mother, Yolanda Frazier, in Billings, 50 miles away, her voice trembling. "Something's wrong," Grace said. Yolanda, a nurse with a mother's intuition, drove to Hardin, her heart pounding. They searched Kaysera's haunts, the fairgrounds, friends' homes, the riverbanks, finding no trace. On August 29, a chilling discovery came not from police, but from a passerby. A woman, walking near a rest stop on Interstate 90, spotted a body in a ditch, partially hidden by grass. It was Kaysera. Her face bruised, her body still, her life extinguished. Grace, informed by a tribal officer, collapsed, her wail a wound in the plains. The Bighorn County Sheriff's Office, led by Sheriff Mike Linder, took charge, their response slow and disjointed. Kaysera's body, found just outside Hardin's limits, showed signs of trauma. Bruises on her neck, abrasions on her limbs, a broken hyoid bone, suggesting strangulation. The coroner, pending toxicology, listed the cause of death as undetermined, a ruling that baffled Yolanda. "She didn't just die," she told deputies, her voice fierce. "Someone did this." The scene, a grassy ditch near a busy highway, offered little. A few fibers, a smudged shoe print, no weapon. Kaysera's phone, missing, was a critical loss, its data a potential key. The sheriff's initial theory, floated to reporters, was a drug overdose, a claim that enraged her family, given Kaysera's known aversion to substances. Hardin, a town scarred by MMIW cases, erupted, its native community demanding answers, their distrust of law enforcement a simmering fire. The investigation from the start was marred by missteps. The crime scene, poorly secured, was trampled by onlookers, evidence likely lost, Kaysera's body left exposed for hours, degraded under the sun, complicating forensics. The sheriff's office, understaffed and inexperienced with homicides, leaned on the Montana Department of Justice, but coordination faltered. Yolanda and Grace, excluded from updates, learned details through rumors, their grief compounded by a tip line set up after community pressure buzzed with calls, sightings of Kaysera at a party, reports of a white truck near the rest stop, but deputies, overwhelmed, prioritized drug leads, ignoring Kaysera's activism, which had riled local authorities. Her protests targeting police misconduct made her a voice, but also a target. Her family believed Kaysera's life offered clues. Her advocacy, bold and public, had drawn threats, some anonymous, others from figures tied to Hardin's power structure. In July 2019, she posted on social media exposing a deputy's alleged abuse of Native youth, her words viral in Crow circles. Friends recalled her unease, her mention of being followed, though she brushed it off, her courage unwavering. Yolanda, come in Kaysera's room, found a notebook, its pages filled with sketches and notes on MMIW cases. One entry reading, "They silence us, but I won't stop." The family, convinced her death was retribution, demanded the FBI investigate, citing Hardin's conflict of interest. The FBI, citing jurisdiction, offered support but no lead role, leaving Linder's team in charge, their progress glacial. The community, led by Native activists, refused to let Kaysera fade. Rallies filled Hardin streets, their signs reading "Justice for Kaysera" and "MMIW Matters," their chants a call to the nation. Grace, her voice steady despite grief, spoke at vigils, her beaded shawl a symbol of resilience. "My granddaughter was murdered," she said, "and they want us to forget." And Yolanda, partnering with MMIW advocates, pushed for media coverage, her interviews on national outlets shining a light on Hardin's failures, billboards with Kaysera's face. Smiling, defiant, rose along I-90, their message a plea for tips. The reward, crowdfunded, reached $50,000, 0 cents, but leads dwindled. The ditch's secrets buried in Montana's vastness? Forensic efforts, hampered by the scene's mishandling, clung to hope. The fibers, synthetic and common, pointed to clothing, possibly a jacket, but offered no brand. The shoe print, size 11, was too weathered to cast its tread generic. Toxicology, completed in October 2019, found no drugs or alcohol. debunking the overdose theory, but the coroner's undetermined ruling stood, a bureaucratic wall. DNA, a faint trace on Kaysera's clothing, was too degraded for profiling. 2019's technology, no match for the elements. The missing phone, last pinged near the rest stop, was a ghost. And its data, if recovered, could map Kaysera's final hours, but searches of the ditch and nearby fields found nothing. The device likely destroyed or hidden. Suspicion fell on Hardin's underbelly. A group of teens at a party Kaysera may have attended were questioned, their stories vague, their fear of police palpable. One, a 19-year-old with a drug charge, claimed Kaysera left the party alone, but his timeline shifted, his eyes avoiding deputies. His DNA swab didn't match the trace, his role unclear. A local businessman, linked to the deputy Kaysera exposed, drew scrutiny. His white truck seen near the rest stop, but his alibi, backed by employees held, his influence a shield. Whispers of a cover-up grew, fueled by the sheriff's ties to Hardin's elite, their reluctance to probe too deep. Yolanda, speaking at a 2020 rally, said, "They know who did this, but they protect their own." In 2021, a private investigator hired by the family uncovered a lead. A trucker passing the rest stop that night recalled a man standing by a white pickup, his posture tense, a bundle at his feet. The trucker, now in Idaho, shared a sketch. Male, 30s heavyset, wearing a cap, but the description, too broad, led nowhere. The truck long gone. The PI, digging into Kaysera's social media, found deleted messages, threats from a burner account, their tone mirroring her activism's foes. The account, traced to a Hardin IP, was inactive, its owner a shadow. The sheriff, presented with the findings, promised action, but no arrests followed. The lead, another dead end in a case of them. Hardin, scarred by Kaysera's death, changed. Native families, long marginalized, grew louder, their protest a tide against systemic neglect. The rest stop, where Kaysera was found, became a memorial, its ditch lined with sage and ribbons, its silence a prayer. Grace, now frail, keeps Kaysera's beadwork displayed, her home a shrine. Yolanda, a full-time MMIW advocate, travels Montana, her daughter's name a rallying cry. "The case and as truth is out there," she told a 2023 podcast, her voice unbroken. "I'll find it or die trying." The community, though fractured, holds vigils, their drums echoing across the plains, their hope afire in the cold. The case, still open, is a wound in Montana's heart. Answers in DNA, like genetic genealogy, offer hope, but the sample's degradation limits progress. Tribal lands, jurisdiction, a hurdle. Suspects, a deputy with a grudge. A partygoer with a secret, a businessman with power, linger in files, their guilt unproven, their lives untouched. The sheriff's office, under new leadership, reopened the case in 2024. Their promise of transparency met with skepticism. Kaysera's phone, if found, could break the case, its absence a taunt. Hardin's native community, led by women like Yolanda, demands federal oversight, their distrust of local law, a wall. The question of Kaysera's final moments, what she saw, who she faced, haunts her family, an answer buried in the ditch's grass. Her activism, a beacon for MMIW, lives on. Her face on murals, her name in Congress, where laws now fund MMIW investigations, a legacy of her fight. In Hardin, where the river flows, Kaysera Stops Pretty Places story is a whisper in the wind, a reminder that justice, for some, is a promise unkept, that silence can be a weapon, and that a young woman's voice, though silenced, echoes still in the hearts of those who loved her. In the quiet of the night, where the rain weaves its gentle lullaby, we've walked through 12 shadowed paths, each a story of loss, betrayal, and the unyielding search for truth. From the abduction of Michaela Garrett in California's suburbs to the unsolved murders of Nancy Logerquist and Bertha Scott in Montana's hills, from the calculated framing of Michelle Hadley to the senseless death of Kaysera Stops Pretty Places, these tales are more than crimes. They are warnings, etched in the hearts of those left behind. They speak of innocence stolen, of communities scarred, of justice that sometimes comes too late, or not at all. The shadows we've explored tonight are not confined to the past. They linger in the corners of our world, in the quiet streets of Hardin, the overgrown trails of Queens, the locked doors of Endor. They remind us that evil wears many faces, a trusted pastor, a jealous friend, a stranger in the night. They urge us to look closer, to question the safety we take for granted, to listen when the vulnerable cry out. The families of Gretchen Harrington, Sierra Jojan, Aya Hasham, and others carry their pain, their love, their fight, a beacon for us all. In Shadows of the Past, we honor these stories not to dwell in darkness, but to illuminate the strength of those who endure. The rain, falling softly, carries their whispers, their unresolved questions, their unbroken spirits. As you drift towards sleep, let these tales linger not as nightmares, but as calls to vigilance, to compassion, to truth. The past is never truly gone. It speaks, it warns, it waits. If these stories have stirred you, share this journey with others. Subscribe to Shadows of the Past for more tales that haunt and heal. Until we meet again, keep your lights on, your heart open, and your eyes on the shadows. Good night, and may the rain guide you to peace.